2014 meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first agenda item is public comment. Do we have any public wishing to comment this evening? No public comment. All right, we'll move on to the acceptance of minutes. We have minutes for July 8th to start with. We have 3 sets of minutes. We'll start with July 8th. Before we go to a motion, anybody have any general comments on the minutes? Or
I have 2 comments, Bill.
yeah?
The first under public comment, I believe, is it not David Mark? Not Marks. And also just a request that I think in the latter half of those minutes, my name is spelled incorrectly.
Good thing we got a new clerk. He'll take care of all those problems in the future. All right. Do we have a motion on the minutes for July 8?
I've moved to accept the minutes with the corrections as stated by Selectman Creel.
We have a motion. I will second that motion. Any further discussions on the minutes? All in favor? Vote 3-0. That minute passes. Now we have the minutes of July 22. Any, before we move to motion, anybody have any comments, corrections on that? All right, do we have a motion on the minutes for July 22?
Move to approve the minutes of July 22nd.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 3-0. And our final set of minutes is the minutes from August 5. Before we move to motion, do we have any comments on that?
One minor correction under new business. It was sort of got jumbled. The school was looking for host families for visiting students, not a hoist for them.
Not going to hoist a forum? Host students. All right, so noted. Do we have a motion on the minutes from August 5?
Move to approve as amended.
All right, we have a motion to approve as amended. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Minutes passed 3-0. Thank you very much. For correspondence items, I move that we accept the correspondence items A through Y as listed in the agenda for the August 19 meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second. There was a comment made in one of the letters, although she's here, and perhaps she doesn't need it to be read out loud at the meeting. But the email from Elizabeth Milligan.
Yeah, she said that we didn't have to this time.
Okay.
She's here to give us the evil eye. So we have a motion and we have a second from Creel on that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Passes 3-0. We have a consent agenda item, single item, item A, special one-day event license for the Pleasant Cafe.
Move to approve the consent agenda as posted in the warrant.
We have a
In
motion-
the agenda.
in the August 19th agenda, very good. Ahead of yourself a little bit. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor? 3-0. Passes. All right, we're far too effective in our public hearing at 7:15. Is not quite time to do that. Kevin,
Yeah.
Suggestions on a fill-in till 7:15?
Can we move and take things out of order and move on to number 8?
Yeah, I don't think the special one-day liquor license will take that long. We could certainly move to that, and I know Wendy's here.
And the other
Boys and
Boys
Girls
and Girls Club item
Um,
might take longer or not?
it may.
All right,
if there's
so
any
let's,
discussion.
If you don't mind, let's
We could
jump
could
jump
do 'em.
to agenda item number 8, a request for a special one-day liquor license at a September 13 event by the Boys and Girls Club. And we have the applicant here.
Yep.
Have a seat, please. If you just state your name for our record of our little recorder there.
My name is Wendy Allegroni Leslie. I'm the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you. All right, could you briefly explain your request?
Requesting a one-day liquor license for our annual road race event with all proceeds to benefit the Boys and Girls Club. This year, we got Sam Adams to be our a sponsor of it, and they are donating beer to us. And at the finish line, the racers who are of legal age will get a beer ticket, and they'll be able to have a beer at the end of the race. I've already coordinated with the chief, talked to Kevin about it as well, so we've already talked about how we're gonna set it up and everything. And we have a tip certified bartender.
Okay. Before we go to questions of the board, Kevin, do you have anything else to add?
Just to add to the request, the Boys and Girls Club's also seeking a waiver for the one-day liquor license fee. And as Wendy stated, she had reviewed the process with me. I was certainly comfortable, as is Chief DuBois, with how they're planning on handling the operation for it. So,
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Kevin, what is the fee?
85.
And just curious, I think the last time an organization came before us for waiving that fee, we denied that. And we denied it not because we didn't like the organization, but because we didn't want to get into an issue where everybody was asking for the fee to be waived. So for consistency purposes, I'm certainly a supporter of the Boys and Girls Club, but I'm not in favor of waiving any fees, given the fact that they exist for a purpose.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. I was going to query you on the recent history of the board action on that.
Yeah,
but
it was,
actually, I participated in that
It
one.
was the
so,
one
yeah.
at the, yeah.
I got you. Okay. Anything else, Jason?
No.
David, any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just interested, I don't know if we've had situations in the past where we've had like tickets handed out to people to get drinks that are of age. A little bit concerning because I know people, oh, I don't drink beer, so you share, and then somebody suddenly has 4 free drinks, and it's more than perhaps they should be drinking after running, or I don't run, but I don't know if that affects the alcohol in you. But so how is that going to be addressed at the event?
Well, it's all gonna be monitored. There's gonna be a place that's all roped off down there that's just for that. We'll also have other vendors down there as well. And then the chief recommended that we move one of the details that's on the race route down to that area. So, and each runner is only getting 1 beer each if they choose to. So it's not a lot of alcohol down there. So
Will there then be alcohol for sale as well?
No.
No, okay, okay,
it's part of the donation. You can't
Gotcha.
sell it.
okay.
Okay.
No further questions.
Any questions from the audience? Mr. Tommel?
Where will the liquor be served? And what controls are you gonna have that somebody can't buy the liquor and hand it off to a minor?
You can't purchase it at all. We'll just do our best to monitor the whole thing down there. But plus, we're gonna have a police detail. There's gonna be a roped off area. You can't leave the area with any alcohol. And it's behind the paper store, outdoor store parking lot. It's where the race finishes.
Okay.
I think with the police detail down there, that will alleviate any of.
I guess you're not familiar with liquor very well, are you, ma'am?
This is the first time we've done this at the event that I've been involved with, but I'm pretty confident that
I find
it'll
it,
be very safe.
I find it's a laudable thing because the booze is where the big money is. But if you can't control it, okay, it's not gonna be an asset for the town because you're inviting people from the surrounding towns to come to a gala day in Maynard with the Boys and Girls Club road race. That's gonna
Well,
start
just be-
and
just be-
end downtown.
Just to
Mr.
just to
Chairman.
clarify, this is strictly for the finishing runners only. It's not open to the public in any way.
Doesn't make any difference, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve a special one-day beer and wine license number ODL 15-BGCAV-091314 for at the end of the road race finish line in the designated area. Do we have a
I'll second. Yeah, does the motion specifically exclude the request for the waiver?
The motion specifically does not include the request for the waiver.
Gotcha.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion for the one-day license? All right, all in favor? One-day license is approved. And I'm guessing, I think the consensus of the board is we want to avoid waiving the liquor license fee, so apologies about that, but
I understand.
you have to look at the bigger picture. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hope it works out very well.
Thank you very
Good luck.
much. So we're doing my next.
Yes,
Should I stay here?
I don't think we'll get through that in 3 minutes.
So get back up.
I think we're stuck for
2 minutes.
2 minutes, waiting for our hearing to begin at 7:15, so. It doesn't look like we have any other small items to do. Although, actually, maybe we don't do anything with it, but, this popped up shortly before the meeting.
Yes.
Something you can explain?
Yeah, that needs chair signature. That's the contract for the water tank that we had bonded for back in the annual town meeting, and that's the final contract award prepared by Woodard and Curran
Okay.
with the town's standard contract use.
And it came in less than town meeting approval?
Yes.
All right, and we don't need any formal action, just the signature?
Correct.
All right, before I open the hearing, I'll read the legal notice. And that is in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 138, as amended. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, August 19, 2014, at 7:15 PM in Room 201 of the Maynard Town Building on the application for a change of manager at the Halfway Cafe, 51 Main Street, Maynard, Mass., in regard to their all-alcoholic beverage license. Time being 7:15, I call this hearing to order. And we have a hearing considering a change of manager for an existing all-alcohol license. And it looks like we have the applicant here and ready. Could you please introduce yourself and introduce your request?
My name's Anthony Fantaroni, and I request that we change liquor license over to my name for the halfway.
And the reason for needing this request?
I'm the new general manager of the halfway.
Okay. Kevin, any input from staff? I mean, I suppose they're all up to date on their
Correct.
taxes and
Yep.
all those good things.
Yeah, no, the recommendation is to approve the change.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the board? David?
Yeah, just briefly, welcome to Maynard. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to work in the Maynard store at all, or not, but John's here, and he runs a great business, and we're happy to have him in town, and so thanks, John, and thanks to you for coming. I guess my question would be just about your background and what you've done in the past in the restaurant business, especially revolving around alcohol, which is really one of our concerns.
You know, my background, as far as education goes, I went to Northeastern University. Got my undergrad there, went out to the West Coast, got a master's degree out there in management. I've been in this industry for, I want to say 6 years now, 6 or 7 years now, pretty much since I got done with schooling in school. Opened up a few restaurants. I'm pretty familiar with all the rules and regulations of regarding alcohol.
Mm-hmm. You're tip certified, I imagine. Okay, great. That's it.
Thank you. Jason, questions?
No additional questions.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience? Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I'm wondering if, why, or if it's standard procedure to not name the prospective new manager.
I thought that had been named, but the prospective manager is here before us, Anthony Fantaroni. So sorry if we missed that before.
It wasn't in the agenda. Is that what you mean?
Well, usually, the way it's been in the past, you know, liquor establishment was asking for a change of manager, they would name who the new manager would be.
And he's here, and he named himself. I'm just wondering what's different, because we have the same situation. But I think your question is, why aren't we naming him? And he named himself. If we're not changing ownership, it's changing of the
I
manager.
understand that, Mr. Selectman, I understand that perfectly well. But it seems that lately in town, between violations and a few other things, that for some reason certain organizations seem to change managers on almost a schedule, pretty much. And it used to be that when a manager, when they replaced an old manager with a new one, they would name them so that, you know, people would be familiar with who they are. I would imagine that the proper investigation of, you know, all of the malarkey that goes with the chapter 138, or what the hell ever it is, in the liquor deal, that, you know, he's qualified. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here.
Yeah, we get
Or at
provided
least
with
that's
that
my
information. Yes, we get provided with that information.
But
Else-
as a citizen of the town, I've been around long enough to know that if they name somebody, I may well have a personal history on that individual. That's the only reason I asked. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your indulgence.
Any other comments, questions from the public?
I just want to clarify one thing, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman. Mr. Tommel mentioned something about a history of violations or whatever. I'm not familiar at all with any violation history at this particular organization, so it just happens to be.
I didn't say that, Mr. Selectman. I said with all of the stuff that's been going on with the liquor stuff in Maynard, okay? That, you know, for instance, there was a case back quite a few years ago where a person was proposed to be a manager, and it ended up that the person had served prison time and a few other things. So, you know, it's a character type of a thing,
Mhm.
more than anything else, I would think. But, I mean, he looks like a nice, clean shirt. Let's go.
Okay.
We just cleaned them up for tonight.
Yeah.
Best ties ever worn. Okay, so,
Keep it running, we can use the tax money.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve the manager change at the Halfway Cafe Incorporate, doing business as Halfway Cafe, to the new manager, Anthony Fantaroni, the establishment being at 51 Main Street in Maynard. We have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion by the board?
No.
Okay, all in favor of the change? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much.
Good
This
luck.
hearing is now adjourned.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
You're getting easy. We went for the license 5 years ago, and I was up there for a half hour. You're getting easy.
Well, listen, at the present time, my, how should I put it? My connection with the local board is not on very good terms. So I have to be kind of careful, because I don't want to be like the governor of Texas.
Okay, gentlemen. All right, next item up, we have a request from the Boys and Girls Club for additional CDAG funds, right?
Correct, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Again, Wendy Allegroni, from the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club. There's a letter in your packet with regards to their request. This was the end, we're coming up to the end of the first 3-year approval, which ends at the end of September. And Wendy has proposed in her letter request for allocation to continue the program and the work they're doing with the low and moderate income families at the Boys and Girls Club. I should speak more to it.
Okay. There's your intro. What do you have to add?
So our membership fee to come to the Boys and Girls Club is $40 for the year, so kids can come every day after school. So with that, we never turn anybody away because of their inability to pay, so we have to subsidize these costs, and with doing that, we apply for funding through different grants and through different
It's the same
organizations.
use.
So this request is to help us meet that need of the low to moderate income kids and to help pay for the, some of the staffing that comes along with that. So this is a good 3-year cycle. We just, like Kevin said, just got through a 3-year cycle. Funding like this is obviously critical to keep our memberships incredibly low. We have over 700 kids that are members of the Boys and Girls Club. We have over 90 kids a day that attend our after-school program because we're located in Maynard. There's 95% of them are from the Maynard community, the amount of kids that are coming over there. So it's a lot of kids over there.
Okay. Is this the purpose for this particular round of funding that you're requesting? Is that the same or different than the last round of
Same.
funding? Same. Okay. And Kevin, can you just explain where the money would be coming from?
Yes, it would be coming from the Community Development Block Grant account, the CDBG money that the town received, actually going back to 2005, of which currently I have a balance for the board, if they're interested, is currently the balance is at $266,103.
103?
Yes,
Is that interest bearing by any chance?
66,103.
Is it in an account that
I don't know which account. I don't know. I don't know if we have it in a. I'm not sure. Did you know, Andrew?
Numbers are accurate from January. I don't know if it's in.
Yeah.
I'm
I'd
just
have to
concerned about future,
Yeah.
is this money going to run out someday? And if it does,
Particular bucket would run out at the rate we're spending it. Whatever interest it might be earning is far less than
yeah,
the
right,
annual output.
yeah.
Is there a timeline for using it? Does the grant expire?
No, we've already met our reporting requirements back actually in 2010 to close it out. So at this point, our only requirement is that it follow the requirements of the grant, of which this use is applicable.
And can you give us a taste of other things that money's been used for?
We've utilized it in the past for some things to do with easements and I think traffic feasibility in the downtown. I think there was some usage recently,
I
minimal
think there was.
impact. Back when my predecessor, Mike Sullivan, was here, I think there was some work that was done with an engineering firm, AECom, and they used a small portion of it to supplement some of that. Prior to that, it had been several years since anything had been charged against it.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the board? Jason?
No.
David?
Nothing.
Okay. Any comments from the audience? All right. So I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the town of Maynard and the Boys and Girls Club of Assabet Valley to fund the youth development program with community development block grant funds. Year one, commencing October 1, 2014, in the amount of $20,000. Year two, commencing October 1, 2015, in the amount of $20,000. And year three, commencing October 1, 2016, in the amount of $15,000. And for the town administrator to work out the details with the Boys and Girls Club, and further to authorize the town administrator to sign the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Mike.
much.
Thank you very much.
Programming over there, too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next item is a discussion on possibly setting the fall special town meeting, and you managed to confuse me, Kevin, by putting two sets into the packet. Do you have a recommendation on a preferred timeline?
The preference would be October 27th.
All right, October 27th. And would you explain why you prefer that day over the other day?
It's consistent with our special town meeting schedule in the past. The November timeframe bumps up against the Board of Assessors tax hearing date, potentially when they're planning to present on their piece, as well as some conflicts, potential conflicts with holidays in there with Veterans Day and the Thanksgiving holiday break, some other reasons. And the timeline that's laid out, I think, is adequate enough to get the planning board, who I believe is going to have a couple of articles to present, as well as other departments, and that's the preference. If it wasn't October 27th, the request would be for November 17th. Particularly the first Monday bumps up the day before the election, the state and local election, so that was a concern. And again, that was really the best day in November if we were to go out that far.
I got you. So you're suggesting that we have a special town meeting on Monday, the 27th October, and that gives the charter has a 30-day lead time on petition warrant articles, so that would make that deadline Friday, September 26th.
Correct.
And I'm presuming that since it's a Friday and it's a town meeting, we would have late hours in the town clerk's office that day?
Yes.
All right. Any comments, questions from the board? Jason?
One comment or question for Kevin. Do you have a timeline or has a timeline been submitted to the departments or the other boards as far as what the 27th will look like? Or have you heard back from planning that they can meet a 27th town meeting?
Not specifically. It was given as a potential date. They haven't seen the timeline, but verbally have been aware of what that means as far as counting back. And also, particularly with the planning board, the discussion has been with the town planner, and he understands the timeline as well. But no, this hasn't been shared other than formally being presented in the packet this evening.
Okay.
But you've run it by the town planner,
Yes.
and he thought the timeline would work for his board.
Yes.
Gotcha. David, any question?
Nope. That would be the question.
That would be the question. All right, let me jump back and forth here. Yes.
And the date has been, both dates have been vetted with school administration, with Fowler School. Both dates are available,
Thank you.
as well as town council's schedule. She's available for either date as well.
Suppose I should check with the members of the Board of Selectmen whether they
As
think they
far
can
as I
make the
know,
date.
I'm not a very social guy, so my schedule is wide open.
Yep, I'm good to go that day, too.
Do we have a sense as to how many articles there may be?
No.
I was gonna save that for next meeting, but okay.
I can rattle off a half a dozen or so, but
So, okay, so this is substantive.
Yeah.
It'll be, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, good. All right, well, then I'll make a motion to set the date and time of a special town meeting at 7 PM on Monday, October 27, 2014. Set that date as the date for the special town meeting, and to designate the Fowler School Auditorium as the location for that special town meeting. I have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Jason second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, we got ourselves a special town meeting on October 27th, and warrant articles are due to the town clerk's office by Friday, September 26th. All right.
See you there.
Hmm?
See you there.
We'll be there. Absolutely. All right, next item is the cemetery policy discussions. You want to tee this up, Kevin? Tee it up, let us know. Are we just discussing, acting?
Yeah, I think particularly around the policy and regulations, certainly the regulations is more of a discussion. Those need to be cleaned up at this point, but wanted to get something before the board. I just had a chance to kind of read through them, so I don't have any, there's some things that stand out that need some correction.
On the regulations
on
you're
the
talking about?
regulations,
Okay, so we can
so-
sort of just ignore those?
Those kind of need to be vetted, but I don't know
Alright.
if the
So-
board has had a chance to read them and can provide some input.
So do we have two topics. One, the findings of the cemetery occupancy, as it were, and then a
Correct.
topic about potential regulation changes?
Correct.
Okay. Chris, you're on, you're at bat here, so tell us about what we know about the usage of the
Okay.
plots in the cemetery.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we've been working on getting ourselves a better frame, to be in a better position to be able to advise the board on where we are and what. If you recall, the board has been wanting to know if we can begin selling plots. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, we've arrived at a point where we can come before the board and let the board understand where we are as at now. So as at this point, based on our research and also based on our assistance from the data we were able to collect, we believe that we have grave lots of about 149. But we have a lot of land. If you look at my summary, we have a lot of land and a lot of space that also we require the board to authorize us to do some surveying and be able to divide those lots. If you look at these different sections, Mr. Chairman, the first four sections.
Hang on, you're referencing your memo of August 14?
August 14, yes,
Summary of grave lots
Yes.
availability? All right, I'm not seeing anything talking about surveying, but okay.
No, I didn't recommend survey on my memo. I'm
Okay,
only saying that if for us to have more lots, we will need to authorization from the board to do some survey. Right now, we have, based on our findings, we have 149 grave lots.
Can I ask, Chris, what is the average number of lots that we utilize in a given year?
Mr. Chairman, in a given year, at least since I've been here, we've been keeping that kind of record. The traffic has been slow because of the request is higher than the given lots, because currently we don't sell lots.
We don't sell in advance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had anywhere from 20 to 40. We give lots, and some of these are already some lots that has been in families' domain, as opposed to.
Wait, Chris, can you back up?
Yeah.
So you're saying under the current restricted rules, we're handing out 20 to 40 a year?
Those are
I don't-
total combination of barrier, as opposed to new sales are not up to that. I'm only giving a total barrier of lots, and some of these lots have been sold to family members long before our current time. So in terms of the new lots, because of debt,
So we're interring 20 to 40 people per year, but we're not necessarily selling that many because some of these have been sold in the
Correct.
past under,
Correct.
okay.
Okay.
so, but based on our current findings, Mr. Chairman, we've been able to go section by section, and we've been able to gather all the data we were able to gather. Our finding and our recommendation and our thinking is that we're able to go up to 149 grave lots. Now,
Chris, can you help me a little bit with the memo?
sure.
Just as an example, you list, it says section 5, then it says all 10 grave lots, and then it has 13 available.
Yes.
What does the reference to all 10 grave lots mean?
It means that in that section, Mr. Chairman, we have 10 grave lots.
Okay?
And then these are old lots where we have up to 10, which in today's standard, people hardly buy 10 grave lots. If you look at the first sections where we have 10 grave lots, we are the old section of the cemetery, where families, and also it was divided in some bigger sections where people can get 10 grave lots as opposed to 2 or 4 or single grave lots. So that's what that meant by 10 grave lots.
All right, so I'm confused. So are you saying that all of section 5 is divided into grave lots that can handle 10 interments? And we
Yes.
have 13 of those 10-person grave lots available?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And if the board can allow us, I will recommend that we should reduce that number, because hardly in today's events, people do not come to ask us that they want to buy 10 grave lots.
Sure. But just, so,
So 100,
I'm getting, maybe I'm on the terminology. So when you say 13 available, you mean we could inter 130. Is that correct?
Correct.
I got you.
okay. That's helpful, because I was getting concerned with 149
No,
available.
grave lots with 149, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I was saying, we have 7 years to go. We need to start having a plan, but. it
Now,
sounds
it's
like-
not quite 149 times 10, because some of these are two-person grave lots, of which 35 are available, so that's 70 internments. All right. Point is, it's a little more elbow room than 149. Got
Yes.
it. Okay. I'm sorry, please continue.
So, Mr. Chairman, my recommendation based on our current findings is that the board can authorize us to, if the board wishes, to begin to sell grave lots. But I would recommend for this point, instead of the 149, the board should either 50 to 60%, plus the board allowing us some money to do some survey, because we believe that there's a lot of grave lots that, and also to look into the 10 grave lot sections, which is in part of the old cemetery, allow us to reduce that number to 2 or maximum 4. So that this way we will have more grave lots, plus it will not be dormant like the way it is dormant right now, because in today's climate, people hardly most people, cremation is what is high today as opposed to
All right,
buying.
so Chris, sorry to interrupt you. I'm hearing three things. One is you're saying we can start selling grave lots without restrictions again, but we shouldn't go crazy and sell them all.
Yes.
Two, you're saying we should break up the 10-person grave lots into 2-person or 4-person grave lots.
Yes,
And
Mr.
then
Chairman.
three, you're saying we should look at options for establishing more.
Yes, because we have space. If you look at,
All right, but back up to the 10 grave lot thing.
Yes.
Kevin, what does it take to do that? Break up to, suddenly say instead
Yeah.
of 10-person pieces, we're gonna sell them in 2-person pieces.
I'd have to look at that closer and get, report back. I don't know.
And on the survey issue, and we'll have a discussion, I'm sure, on that in a bit, but I believe the Historical Commission had some type of a survey
for the
done.
survey.
Now, I don't know if that was of the entire cemetery, if it was only of a section of the cemetery, but I think we ought to, rather
All right.
than jumping over ourselves, to see if that's already been done.
Okay, well, let's first address the question of the 10-person grave lots. Jason, you okay with selling them in smaller pieces?
Yeah, maybe Chris, you can help me with this. So I'm having trouble with this. So if I walked into the cemetery and I could buy a plot, I have to buy enough plot for 10 people?
Yes, in the old cemeteries, the way it was divided, not only in Maynard, Mr. Chairman, in the olden, because of technology and because of movement of personnel, you hardly see in modern times people walk in and say, no, I need to buy 10 grave lots. Because in the past, families tend to be large. Today's families are usually, Mr. Chairman, maybe 4 or 5, and some prefer cremation. So you end up not selling 10 grave lots at a time. And so that's just why I'm asking the board to take a look at that. Currently, all we sell mostly is 2 or single or existing one where individuals come in and then they do cremations. So at least since I've been here, I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay.
So I was gonna, so I get what you're asking for, which makes sense to me. Selling in smaller lots. I'm kind of curious why we need to do it if people are already coming in and buying 1 or 2 lots out of the 10.
No, these sections were divided in that kind of domain 10.
Yeah.
There are areas, if I may, there are areas in the old cemetery that have not been sold.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but if somebody wants to come in and buy those plots, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong with this, they have to buy it in 10-piece increments.
Okay.
And just to clarify a confusing subject more, that would happen in something like section 5, 6, 7, or 8. If you want to be buried all by yourself, you buy a single site in section 27 or 21. If you want to be buried with one other person, then you buy in section 21. So for some reason, we have it all cut up, but I'm hearing that Kevin's going to look into it and give us details if we wish to act at a later time. So, we okay with the 10 grave lot discussion?
Yeah.
Move on to the
No issue with
potential for expanding with the
Yep.
caution that David provided us that perhaps the survey may have already been done at some
There
point?
was some type of survey done. I don't know the extent of it, and I don't know how far it went in the cemetery and whether it was limited to just Civil War grave sites in that era, or if it was an extensive survey of the entire. But I know that they did something. I remember they used CPA funding for it, I believe,
Do you recall how long ago?
within the last 5 years. Vic, do you remember that?
What's that?
That the Historical Society may have, the Historical Commission may have used some CPA funds to do some type of surveying of the cemetery?
Well, that was when Ms. Brown, that worked at the
Correct.
post office,
Correct.
she spent CPA funds to survey a section of the old cemetery.
Was it just a section?
That, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
On the left.
Okay.
They recently put up a granite monument with a designation on it, and supposedly, she was one of these people that used to go to the cemetery and make rubbings and what
Yeah.
have you. She noticed this empty area supposedly, so she got approval for the CPA funds, and they went in there with some kind of machines and stuff they have today, and they determined that that area was a burying ground for people who died in the influenza epidemic. Now, one of the things customarily in old cemeteries that you people might be aware of, because you're all children, is that when you bought a lot in a cemetery, you didn't buy a lot, you bought a family plot. And generally speaking, they were like 6, 8, and 10 grave lots. And those were called family plots. Well, if you check the records up there in the old section of Glenwood Cemetery, you find that because of the way the society has moved about since World War II, you're going to find a lot of those graves are never going to be used. There's nobody buried in them. And at one time, when Mr. Flood was here, he conducted a survey, and he determined at that time that the best way to do it would be to sell on an as-needed basis. In other words, one grave at a time. So if you wanted a grave, okay, you bought a single grave. You could buy the one next to you for, say, your wife. But that was about it.
Okay, all right,
There's
thank
a
you.
lot of graves up there that you people are not aware of because you're not looking at it the right way. Okay.
All right. So Chris, back to you on the, your thoughts about possibly expanding the number of sites.
Yes.
You're talking about a survey. You have a number in mind, how big, how many more we should try to get?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there are, a cremation would be, we have at the new site, the newer grave site, we have a large area there that hasn't been marked. It's very close to the wetlands. If you look at the pit, if we survey that, Mr. Chairman, we'll be able to get a lot of grave lots, especially for cremation, which is one of the things that is most common today. Also, if you look at the various sections, like section 21, Mr. Chairman, we have 11 plus more available space to be measured. And that is section 21. And that area, with the survey, we'll be able to get a good measurements and be able to report to the board that X number of grave sites, and by a number, we think we'll be able to get up to anywhere from 20 to 30, just in section 21. Now, depending on how the board wants to allocate it, if it wants to allocate it just a single grave lots or 2 grave lots, but I think my recommendation of the board will be a mixture of single and cremation.
So
I think the board will be able to get it. Will be able to have a lot of grave lots.
So Chris, to the question of how many do we need?
Yes.
It looks like we have about, I don't know, pushing 1,000 empty spots, and we're only doing 40 interments a year, so, you know, that's good for 25 years. Are you saying the usage rate is going to increase? I'd like to understand how many we should have and when we should have them.
How many we should have and when we should have them, Mr. Chairman? We, right now, if the board authorizes us to go my recommendation to survey or reduce some of our 10 grave lots to smaller lots, we'll have additional grave lots to what we have right now. The issue of burial, Mr. Chairman, some of those are already sold lots, so that will not come into play what we are recommending to the board.
I think we're on board with whatever's necessary to break up the 10 grave lots into smaller pieces, but I'm trying to get an understanding of whether we currently have an understanding of what the number of sites we will need in the future and how long before they get all used up.
We have a lot
I'm
of
thinking we don't have those numbers yet.
We don't have those numbers because we have the site, it hasn't been surveyed. That's why I'm recommending to the board. If you look at my chart that I submitted to the board, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but
We-
can you just back up a second?
Yes.
Of the existing ones we have?
Yes.
If we cut those up into smaller pieces?
Yes.
How long would they last before we ran out?
If the board approves that we should sell lots right now for anyone that comes coming to buy lots who is a Maynard resident, Mr. Chairman, who will have my based on today's what we have on the record today, I think we will have up to, if you go to anywhere from 10 to 25 years, we should have enough to sell, in my view. Because it's not something that young folks or even the elderly folks are coming every second. But I know that once the board changes the policy, we may have a couple of, the rush may be there for a while, but we have enough, provided the board breaks up some of these lots to smaller numbers. Or
Does breaking up the lots require survey?
No, the current lots, yes, it requires so because, if, for example, Mr. Chairman, one lot will take one full grave and one cremation, or 2 cremations. Now, we also require by headstones, so we have to make a provision for that, and so that's one of the reasons why we need the survey. So, for example, the 10 grave lots, once the board, for example, the board approves for us to make it 2 grave lots, or even single grave lots, we may not necessarily get 10, but we may be able to get 8 because of space for headstones and different things. Or we may, in some areas, if the board says go with cremation, we can get more.
And what's your estimate on cost for a survey?
I don't think it's going to take more than 5,000 to 10,000 because we have an engineering firm, we have contract VHB, they can give us a survey to take
And-
to.
and
Yes, Mr.
Kevin, such an allocation for a survey, would that require town meeting approval?
The perpetual care funds.
Yes, Roger,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
All
It's
right.
just the board, I think, has authorization to do that for us. If
Yeah.
the board do that for us.
Okay.
And Kevin, you're already on board to get us more information about the
Yes,
logistics of that
yeah.
anyways, next meeting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you have anything to add on future expansions beyond the current sections? Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, because I'm a little confused whether surveying is within the existing layout or we're talking about surveying for expanding. the
yeah, I think
footprint.
what Chris originally was alluding to was surveying for expansion, which would be kind of up in this area. If we were to look at doing that, I think that those sites would be solely for cremation.
Yes,
There's also some
wetlands.
activity and some other, so it really.
We own all that property?
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's where the reference that you'd be talking about surveying. The other surveying piece would be actually surveying the existing lot to determine the extent of it and then how to divide that.
And do we have other options for cremation lots?
Yeah, there is some lots that have, have one plus a cremation included within a particular burial location. Some have 2 full burials with a cremation. Chris would know better than I the number of those, but there's already a mix of that.
But, I mean, there's nothing to stop us from, going back to section 5, if all those 10 grave lots were split up, some of them could be surveyed as cremation.
Correct. And the old, you're talking about in section 5 in the old, yeah.
Correct.
All right. Jason, you got any questions about this?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to get an answer tonight, though. I guess I have a no. I guess let's put it out there. I'm on board with us looking at the smaller lots, the cremation lot. I think it would be helpful to know,
That's mine.
what we're doing now. I'm a little confused on I'm just doing the numbers here, and it looks like we've got years and years worth of space in the cemetery. If we need to start planning or we need to get some survey in to adjust the grave lots so they're not 10, so they can be sold as smaller. I guess I have some questions on what the control is up there. How are they marked? And I'll be honest, most of this is not, I don't spend a lot of time up there, so I don't really know much about it. We can certainly do that offline, with a site visit. I guess until I kind of have a better idea of what the survey is for, I'd like to hold off on that.
Yeah, no, understandable. And actually, my general feeling is, I think we've had a good introduction to the topic, and
Yeah, I
Kevin
think,
will bring us more information
I
at
think the
next meeting.
takeaway, my recommendation, I think we're at a point where the board could start selling. I don't think we're a case where it's a jeopardy of we're running out of plots, in the immediate vicinity. But if we look at allowing reselling lots, and whatever that number is, when we hit a certain threshold, maybe at that point we look at putting in some other controls. But I don't think we're in any jeopardy of, if we were to open it up and start selling lots.
Are you suggesting we act on that tonight, or do we wait till we follow up on this discussion at next meeting?
I think we can act on it. We've had a lot of discussion with the survey, with the assessment, rather, of all of the records, and the gentleman that was working on the cemetery scanning project and the records project, and the availability and the actual plots themselves are in that database. And I think we can act on it. I feel comfortable that we're not in a case where we're running into.
Do you have any suggestions on caveats, such as we only sell single, double, and quad lots? I don't know that we really want to go be selling any 10.
Correct.
grade lots.
Yeah, no, I think that would allow for cremation, single, and doubles.
And Maynard only?
Maynard resident.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. The issue right now is we do have some folks that are interested in purchasing lots that they're either haven't passed or they're not terminally ill, and we're holding that up. And
it's we had one that came before us that wanted to do it as part of his estate planning, and I think that's
Right.
important for people to be able to have that peace of mind. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to enable that. Jason, you okay if we do a motion to remove the restrictions on the sales? Because
Yeah,
right
I
now,
got-
the restrictions are, it's only immediate need.
Immediate need. Okay, I guess my only one clarification would be, and maybe we take care of this in the motion, that we're not going to then open it up to sales for 10 plot lots only,
Now, Kevin was suggesting singles and doubles.
singles and doubles. So you're going to look into that, and then we'll authorize you to, basically tonight we would authorize the sale of the lots, and then presumably sometime in the near future we'd be getting something to the effect of how they're being split.
Yes,
Double, singles.
that would be my recommendation. So that the DPW could start selling lots for cremation, singles, and doubles.
All right, so I'll make a motion that,
Bill, before you make a motion,
Yeah.
can we hear from Mr. Tommel, who's been wanting to comment for a bit?
okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a couple of things. Number one, you people seem to be fixed on burial lots. Check with the National Funeral Directors Association, you will find that the trend on burials for deaths are going very strong for cremations, which don't require as much land area as a regular burial. If you look at your town reports, and you will see that the town clerk says we had 38 deaths in Maynard. But that doesn't mean that those 38 people were buried in Maynard, okay? So, if you look at it in a broader sense than just lots, you have an area up there that surrounds the pond that can be made into a beautiful memorial garden just simply for cremated remains. It's only, I've mentioned this before and nobody seems to go for it. Your fixation seems to be burial with a casket and so forth, using a lot of land. Now, also, I had a number of people who passed away that were friends of mine, and they were buried in the family plot, but they were cremated. You know, it sounds terrible, but for a cremation, you take a pole hole digger and you make a hole to bury the urn. So, you know, I think you're getting kind of a far afield, and if you really want some solid information, get in touch with the National Funeral Directors Association. They can give you a breakdown of the sections of the country in the whole 9 yards. But I still think somewhere along the way in the gentleman's reckoning that you should consider somewhere in that area up there cremation urns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence.
So the issue at hand is whether we're able to remove the restriction on sales, and to that effect, I'm going to make a motion that the policy effective immediately is that we will allow sales of cemetery, cremation lots, single lots, and 2 grave lots to Maynard residents on an unrestricted basis.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion from the board? All in favor? 3-0. All right. Kevin, do we have anything more before we move to a brief discussion about thoughts on modifying regulations?
No, not unless the board has any
I have just
input
one
into
comment.
the regulations.
One comment on this list. What's the nature, when you say, Chris, section 18, the only information that's available to us, it says missing information. Does that mean we have no idea who's buried there and no idea how many plots there are and no idea? Yes,
You're
ma'am.
not Chris Okafor.
Oh, let Chris and then I'll
Thank
speak.
you. Mr. Chairman, we have 3 or 4 barriers. We are researching for documents. Right now, those documents concerning that section is not, we've not been able to get hold of them. That's why I put it there, missing information. I don't want to give the board information that I cannot defend. Well, I believe that by our final report, Mr. Chairman, we'll be able to tell you how many buried. Now, Becky is raising her hand because she has a family plot, and that's section 18. And we've told her that she should relax. We have her record. That's one of the 3 or 4 burial that we have been able to locate. And in our current program, we collected we have the data also with our scanning company. They also have that information. So it's just that like every section, we're able to break it down properly. I've been the highway foreman and I've been talking to also people from the historical commission to see if they can give us some information. It's just like what happened if you look at the various sections, we also didn't have some data on section 7. But historians were able to tell me it was a mass grave burial. So we've been able to understand why we didn't have burial cards on that. So those kind of things, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So we're currently researching on that.
All right.
Okay. Kevin, just to clarify on this issue, we've done the radar survey, so we know if there's an internment. We just perhaps don't know the ownership?
Correct.
What we're saying?
Yes. Yeah. Specific with some of those areas, a lot that came to light when we moved forward over the last several months with the scanning project and record project, where some of those, for whatever reason, those particular identified sections, records were missing specific for. But I think at one time there was a fire maybe up at
Yes.
at the shed where they lost a section of some records, and so it's a matter of pulling it all together. But we at least know. You know, as Chris said, we identified specifically exactly where those are through that through the process of the scanning and record piece. All in all, though, it's in really good shape. In fact, the meeting with the consultant, Ted Maynard, has probably the best records out of hundreds of projects that they've done related to the cemeteries. Our records were actually not only intact, but the detail of the records, believe it or not, were extremely well done on the cards. So it worked out to our favor. with the project and their ease of gathering that data. It was very beneficial to them, so.
Okay. And Kevin, now to move the cemetery discussion to potential changes in regulations.
Yeah, I provided
you want
a draft copy of potential changes, rules and regulations for Glenwood Cemetery in Dropbox. I don't know if the board, I think it went in on Friday. I don't know if the board's had an opportunity to look through it and provide any initial insight or thoughts. I have to myself do a better thorough review.
I mean, it would be just helpful for just a brief overview of the more substantial modifications and why they might be of
Yeah.
benefit.
I'll defer to Chris on, because he's the one that drafted this.
So the regulations, I mean, we don't need to go into little detail, but big picture wise, what are a couple of the big issues that you think should be changed and why?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the big issue is one, the use of the cemetery, and also the items that can be left in the cemetery, so that perpetual and the things that will be left in the cemetery and how it should be left, the beautification, so that what families can bring or plant or not plant, plus because those are the type of things, Mr. Chairman, that makes the cemetery looks more beautiful, and standardization of the how many headstones or how the markers has to be placed. So those are just some of the things that.
All right, so one big topic is the aesthetics of how many above ground stones and
Yes.
and plantings and.
Yes, because currently, Mr.
paving.
Chairman,
I got you.
Yeah.
All right. What's the other subject you've been looking at?
I've been looking at also in terms of administratively, we don't have all things that has to be cut off time for requesting for burial or for grave, and then the days that we can utilize the site, for example, because of CBAs, public holidays, we don't have staff, and so those public holidays, we also have to put them in writing so that people are aware that we cannot be available at those particular times, and no burials on Sundays. Saturdays, we have a limited time, plus, so those kind of things.
So this issue of when interments and openings can take place,
Yes.
you're suggesting we take current practice and put that as a policy?
Yes.
Or are you saying we change current practice?
No, current practice, Mr. Chairman. It's just that it's not, it's not well fine-tuned or written down. Yes.
I got you. Any other significant topics we should be looking for?
No, Mr. Chairman, because if you look at our rates, based on the rate I have, Mr. Chairman, as on the board adjusted this rate in 2013. And for now, it meets our demand. We pays, especially when we come in on Saturday. We've also included the overtime cost.
So you gave us in our Dropbox a memo with rates effective August 5, 2013, and these are all
Current rates.
These are all current, and you're suggesting they remain the same?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, because if you look at it, the board just acted on it recently, before my time, so I would suggest they remain the same for now.
Very recently. Well, obviously.
Okay. Kevin, you got anything to add to the big topics we should be thinking about?
No, not at this time. I think just a question I had requested of Chris was if we had a redlined version of this proposed rules and regulations, but my understanding is we didn't have any Word document at all. We had a couple-page PDF, or as the chair asked, I'm trying to cross-reference what already exists
No, I
Current
attached,
regulation.
the existing,
Is that the only thing that exists?
Yes, that's
Okay,
the
so
only-
Yeah, okay.
the board has this,
so I wanted the board to
this
look at it.
two-page,
Yes.
almost looks like a handout.
Yeah, a little
Um,
brochure.
Yeah,
This is essentially capturing this as well as additional changes in this regulations document, so that clarifies that.
I got you,
so I
okay.
wanted the board to take a look, give me a red line, and so we can fine tune it. That's,
I got you, okay.
Yep.
And so no fee change, but we're looking at
yes.
hours of burial, and we're looking at the aesthetics and what you can place. Okay. That's fair. Question of member of the board, you want to delve into any of these topics? I don't know if you,
We're gonna
if
have
you've
further
read this stuff
discussion at
before.
another time, that's fine. The one caution I would make is I see on some of the monument, the details relative to the monuments, as long as people, when they're purchasing in advance specific plots, know that the plot that they're going for can only have the flush markers, I'd hate to have somebody not understand that when they purchase their plot and then learn it upon the death of the first member of the family and then be disappointed about that. So there has to be some way to identify which ones we're not going to allow raised grave markers. I don't think that that's clear on this. Somebody comes in and says, well, I like that area. So there has to be a way to determine which sections or where we're not going to allow raised grave markers. But that's sort of in the weeds, and I don't want to go there, so.
Well,
So-
I mean, that brings up the issue of grandfathering. I mean, I presume if I purchased it before, then I act under the old rules, but, yeah.
Also, my take, Mr. Chairman, is that if somewhere along the line the board gives us a final approval on regulations, we'll be able to come up with updated forms and bring before the board to bless before we. And that is one of the things we'll put on our application forms.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, again, just, I think, as I said at the beginning, this certainly needs more vetting, and going through one of the particular areas in reference to veterans, like the veterans agent to take a peek at, make sure it's within, his understanding, and make sure that that's covered and has thorough review with the veterans agent and, some other areas. But I commend Chris on trying to codify a lot of what has been practiced but just hasn't been in writing. So I think that the end result will be a good document, so.
All right, very good. Anything further, Jason?
No.
All right, well, thank you, Chris, for that cemetery policy discussion. And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
now the next item on the agenda, let me just figure out where this is.
We're at number 12.
We're at number 12, and that's the water and sewer abatement policies, a follow-up on our discussions from last time. And I believe the revised version is the last page in your packet. And as introduction, these two policy items, one is the adjustment on prior use of water and sewer and how far back the town can go to claw back charges and how far back somebody can go to request an abatement. And the only difference in this version of the text from the one that was presented at last meeting is that the period is suggested to be not exceeding the prior 36 months rather than 24, because the 36 is consistent with past practice of the board. And the question to you, Chris, about the abatement timeline and clawback timeline of 36 months. You have any preference, 36, 24 months? Any
Yeah.
other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would think that I would recommend to the board, Mr. Chairman, that we should reduce it to anywhere from 18 months to 24 months as opposed to 36 months.
And your reasoning is?
My reason, Mr. Chairman, is that because we every quarter we get a bill, even if an individual for some reason is not able to get hold of the process the first couple of quarters, 24 months will give enough quarter to, as opposed to 36 becomes like afterthought in my view.
Okay, now, keep in mind that this policy applies both to the town side and to the ratepayer side. So if the town makes a mistake in billing,
Yes.
you're suggesting the town should only go back 18 to 24 months to correct that mistake?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little bit. It's a little bit maybe because I'm a public servant. I'm a little bit subjective to that, in the sense that if you look at other governmental agencies, they tend to police us to a certain degree based on law. But from our recommendation, the town should have ability to go 24 months, probably beyond 24 months, but we should come to the board to argue our case why we should go beyond 24 months, in my view. Yeah.
I'm not quite following the response. I mean, you want
For example, Mr. Chairman.
the town clawback on prior bills.
Correct. We go.
What's your number?
My number.
18, 24?
My number is 24 months plus, or with a clause, Mr. Chairman, that if we want to go beyond 24, we should come to the board and argue our case, so that the board can give us a window. Maybe, okay, you have, as opposed to.
So you want the town to be able to go back farther than the ratepayer can go back?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Any thoughts, David?
Yeah, I don't think the town should be given any different timeline than the resident or the ratepayer. As a matter of fact, I think that the town theoretically has better resources to be able to research these things than the average ratepayer. So for that purpose, I don't favor giving the town a better deal, so to say, than the ratepayer. I think one of the reasons we discussed this at the last meeting to go to 3 years, first off, we had done it for the most recent discussion, but I think our concern, you guys can correct me if I'm misrepresenting the thought process, but that it was to give residents the opportunity, or ratepayers the opportunity, to see seasonal changes in their bill over a course of just, if you go to 1 year, it's not necessary. If it's 24 months, you're only seeing that one season, correct? Because it hasn't come around again. So it gives you the 2 years to be able to compare, rather than just your last year. Because you would, by the time you get the bill, you're looking at it and you're saying, hey, wait a minute, this is too high, and you can only go back one cycle. That was the thought process.
All right, very good. I think I'm rather agnostic, whether it be 24 or 36 months, but I'm adamant that whatever applies to the ratepayer should apply for the town.
Mr. Chairman.
That only seems fair.
Mr. Chairman, please, there is one reason why I suggested that the board should give the town the ability to come before the board, even after 24 months, is that, Mr. Chairman, since I've been here, and I know the board has been very helpful to us in aggressively making sure that when we come, we've been looking at, and recently, we've been policing a lot of things. We've been looking at, we've been finding out that people have water, or they've been away where they're not paying their rates, and sometimes even in the town reads, we can't find there's no record within that 24 months. For example, Mr. Chairman, if you recall, we came before the board. There was a gentleman who came here, and we told the board that we were able to discover that he had irrigation meter. After years of, so Mr. Chairman, if in such a case, because, and then our view, the public works view, was that he was illegally installed. He never followed the right procedure, and he knew the right procedure. But he argued that there was a DPW staff who came in, and the board made a decision. And that was fine, Mr. Chairman. But my request is that the board should allow us the ability for a hearing. So that sometimes in a case like that, because what we are doing right now, we believe that as we aggressively pursue every household right now, Mr. Chairman, we may find one or two incidents where the town, in the case of us, we were not able to get the right situation on time, and so there's a backlog, and so we're in that kind of a situation period right now, Mr. Chairman, and there's nobody for me to go back to because of the turnover in my department, except one or two individuals who are basically staff. They are not management staff, and so they cannot help me in many cases. But at least they have some history. So we are in a situation, Mr. Chairman, where I'm not saying that the board should give me a carte blanche, but at least give us the opportunity to come and argue our case.
Now, would it be more comforting to you to note the text in this proposal that there is no time limit at all in cases of intentional avoidance of fees? This time limit only applies if there is some mistake or some partial mistake by the town. If somebody is intentionally avoiding payment of fees, there is no time limit established for the clawback. Is that more useful to you?
Yeah, that's more useful to me, Mr. Chairman, but because it's an abatement, I would prefer it to be before a rate or a water user or a utility user comes before the board. They better know that for abatement, abatement is not rubber stamp. They have to, so it is in their own responsible statement, like any adult. When you get a statement, Mr. Chairman, every month or every quarter, they should be able to look at their statement. So 24 months is good, but in terms of the town, Mr. Chairman, I still feel that the town should not be held at the same level with the individual who is using, because the water usage or the ability to use it's not a right. The town supplies the water. So if an individual says, I live in Maynard, I don't want water in Maynard, I know the Board of Health will go after an individual because you can't survive without water. But I also believe, Mr. Chairman, that that individual has, the board is lenient enough to give a 2-year period, 24 months, as opposed to because of small shop, which we have in DPW, and because of no good, even in a big entity, it happens. Record get lost or turnover, and no good record. So it's difficult, or a situation where somebody is trying to play dumb, for lack of a better word, Mr. Chairman, or trying to take advantage of the town but eventually we'll get to that individual. It may be more than 2 months, 2 years, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, well, I think you and I have a personal disagreement on this, because I don't see it as town versus ratepayers. I see the ratepayers are the town.
Yes,
We're working together on this.
But Mr. Chairman, when somebody is coming to the board for abatement, the person better know that they have a good case. My experience is that, Mr. Chairman, if we make it so liberal, the board will be entertaining lousy cases, in my opinion.
Okay, this is just a timeline. This is not opening up to all sorts of things. But I'll move over to Jason. Jason, comments on this?
Yeah, but I guess I probably agree with you as far as whether it's 24 or 36 months. You know, I understand where Chris is coming from, and that's his position. You know, I would also say that, you know, as far as looking at your previous seasonal data, you can always go in and get that data. You don't need to wait 2 years to figure out what your water rate was a year and a half ago. But I think as written, the 36, I think that gives the department a fairly significant amount of time to chase it down. I'd rather than playing with timelines, I'd prefer to see, you know, some auditing protocols in our billing, so that we're not chasing water and we're not, we're checking our bills. I don't know, there have been, before I put my foot in my mouth, but I know there has been some significant improvement on going back and checking bills as they're going out and pulling out outliers and so on, so.
No, I think I agree with you about the auditing would be useful. But I think that this policy is simply to eliminate one of the questions that arise during an abatement process. And that's strictly, how far back do you go? And it's always a topic of unnecessary discussion once it reaches us. But anyways, all right, I think we muddled to a semi-consensus, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the policy on adjustments for prior use of water and sewer as presented in the review draft dated August 15, 2014.
Second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 3-0. All right, so that was supposed to be the short discussion. Now this is the more complex one. And so now we're revisiting the topic of the policy guidance on abatements for substantial leaks and floods. And the differences, the edits made since the last time we discussed are two things. One is to clarify that the abatement on sewer fees only counts if the water does not enter the system. And secondly, it's about the issue of billing the excess water flow, and rather billing it at half the initial step, it's changed to the full amount of the initial step. And those are the differences from the last time we took this up. And so I'll start with you, Jason, for any thoughts, initial thoughts.
Actually, I'd like to hear Chris's thoughts on.
All right, fair enough. So Chris, those changes, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm fine with the sewer, Mr. Chairman. We don't have to, once we determine that the flow or the water that go to our sewer system, we don't have to bill for sewer.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, Mr. Chairman. But the billing of the excess water, my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, would be, except if the board has an exemption, either because of military or age or some circumstance, I will recommend that we bill based on the total usage.
So you do realize we have conservation-based step rates. So you're
Yes, we
suggesting we bill, in a catastrophic event, we bill the punitive upper limit step rate to the people who are already incurring, severe excess expenses in many other issues.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not seeing how your recommendation provides any conservation, which is the rate structure, because it's a catastrophic leak. I'd be more interested to know if you thought the town would lose money charging only the initial step rate.
I think the town will lose money, Mr. Chairman, in part because I understand it's a catastrophic, and that is why I said, Mr. Chairman, if the board can give a waiver for some elderly individual or military or some sense, as opposed to, for example, Mr. Chairman, a young individual who, yes, it's a catastrophic situation, but it wasn't caused by the town. It was caused by either, if it's determined, it was caused by either the fact that the system failed or the fact that the homeowner or the individual did not use proper ethics. For example, if I have to leave my house, I don't have to, and it's 20 degrees or 10 degrees, Mr. Chairman, below degree. I should understand that, and the house should be placed in such a temperature that will not affect my system. And so if I didn't do that because for some reason or other, and it becomes a catastrophic failure, I don't see why the board should give me a a break, except if the board, as I said, Mr. Chairman, gives us ability, for example, elderly individuals or even military individuals or some class, because of, I will agree with the board to do that, but not for everyone, Mr. Chairman.
So
If
you're
there's a
suggesting we pick favorites on this policy, and some people
Yes.
save money and some people don't. But my
Yeah.
real question to you is a statement you said that we would lose money if we only charge the initial block rate. Are you saying that the town loses money on the initial block rate charges?
No, that's not what I meant, Mr. Chairman. What I meant, Mr. Chairman, is the number, that water was used. It may not have been used based on what the homeowner intended because of some failure. Now, the catastrophic failure, Mr. Chairman, if it's by act of nature, for example, there was a major hurricane or some major act of nature or snow or some public event that interfered with the external failure. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will recommend to the board, and I'm sure the board will authorize that for abatement. But if the catastrophic failure is because of the pipe in my home is old, or because of some treatment within the property, I don't see why the board should attain not allowing the full rate to take place. The reason why I suggested a particular class, Mr. Chairman, is because just for the board to have a leniency to a particular group. Now, the board may not necessarily do that, but that, in my view, is better than for everyone.
When somebody has one of these catastrophic events,
Yes.
Nobody wants it to happen. So I don't think there's ever any intent. I think that's rare, if ever. I think 999 out of 1,000 are purely catastrophic events. And Bill has expressed, and I think well over the last couple of meetings when we've had this discussion, is we don't want to make money, we don't want to profit off of somebody's misfortune. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody's misfortune. And so, and most people, when they learn that they've had a water leak that's been dramatic,
Yes.
They're going to have a heck of a lot of other, as Bill said earlier, expenses that are associated with not only the plumbing expenses, but in many instances having to replace housing, rugs and everything else. They're not in a position to be paying the town of Maynard, hundreds of dollars because they happen to be on vacation when a pipe split. Not necessarily because of weather, not because of anything, but their misfortune. So, I have some problems in not recognizing that, it's not that they're not going to be charged; they're going to be charged at the first level rate, and I think by approaching it from the perspective of, hey, you were away for 3 weeks, but so you're going to get charged thousands of dollars, but you were only away a week. So you're only going to get charged hundreds of dollars. That's not fair either. They're still going to have the higher rate, but the higher dollar amount. But
Mr. Chairman, the board can also authorize us the individual to pay instrumental payment. Even if the individual owes the town X amount of dollars, the individual can take advantage of the board giving us the authority to. The individual can come before the board to request for instrumental payments. The individual can come before the board to also request for leniency, for mercy. And then the board also can make a determination at that point, as opposed to the board not collecting, or at least allowing us to collect based on the amount of water that's
we would be charging them at the base rate for the amount of water that
Was lost.
was lost.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about, our
I do understand
our
what-
mercy rule being charging them 14% interest on an installment plan.
I do understand what the board is saying, Mr. Chairman. My argument, I also have looked at various towns who are more like us. Nedic, for example, Peabody, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm mispronouncing it. And the same argument, Mr. Chairman, has some of the philosophy I'm asking the board to take a look at is what they're also doing. And so people are very aware, and some homeowners have insurance. So insurance takes care of some of the, so if they want the board to have mercy, then they should also come to the board and say, you know what, Mr. Chairman, please, the insurance is going to pay X amount. This is what, then at least then the board can take a look at it and make a decision as opposed to, that is how the argument, the other issue.
So we just make you guys pay for it. That's fine.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we're spinning our wheels a little bit. Kevin, you got anything to add to this?
No, I was going to bring up that question about specifically on the homeowner's claim, how that's looked at. If I guess it would be a matter of them submitting how the bill is versus actual abatement. If it's almost double dipping in some cases, but I'm not sure how that process works.
Double dipping on the homeowner's benefit? Well, the homeowner would not be reimbursed for their water
At all?
rate.
Okay.
They don't get that. They get replacement cost of damaged, subject to a deductible.
Okay.
Of their damaged property.
That's an interesting point.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, you see it similar to, if power goes out, they get reimbursed for
Yeah, you get
food that's in a refrigerator and some other, I didn't know if there's an opportunity where, potentially.
I've never heard. I don't do
misfortune to actually
homeowner stuff, but I've never
able to
heard of that
capitalize on it.
claim, that type of a claim being made for water use reimbursement for a burst pipe.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the policy guidance on abatements for substantial leaks and floods as presented in the review draft dated August 15, 2014.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yep.
To be honest, at this point, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable, based on what was just said, with going with an initial step rate if I don't know that rate is covering our cost.
No, he said it was covering our cost. He clarified that.
All right.
We got a problem if it doesn't.
Well, again, it could be, like many
That means
things could
everybody
be,
using lesser amount of water is we're losing money on.
Right.
and is offset by those who use larger amounts of water. That wouldn't be uncommon, but.
But we also had, prior question asked of the name escapes me, the person who does our rate setting. Toby, when he was asked about, the marginal cost of additional water, he thought it was de minimis.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? With 3-0, motion passes. The policy is in effect. Thank you.
Can we confirm that these policies go into effect immediately versus a time certain?
You have a preference?
I would think that we should advertise it as the new policy, and probably, I don't know what date we should choose, but I don't know if it should be tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman, August 29th, we'll be doing another water read for,
Where we start the new cycle?
yes, August 29th.
Yeah, so then I would suggest that be
We
the,
do another read to go out, the building will go out in September, October. So,
Well, that's a new read. That's not a
yeah, that's,
bill.
yeah, the new read. So the bill, we go out in October, Mr. Chairman.
So you seriously, it only applied, it can't really apply only to future bills. I mean, actually, I hadn't anticipated advertising this at all. It's just, this is guidance, so
I understand.
when the phone rings, they can give some definitive direction.
Okay, fine.
Rather
That's
than-
fine.
You know, I'm not gonna go beat the bush for people who
I got you.
abatement.
That's fine.
Okay. So we can move on to item 13.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman.
Uh-oh.
Do you want us to take this effective today, immediately, Mr. Chairman? Just in case tomorrow somebody calls
If
or
somebody calls up and says that they have
they come in
an
to fill a
issue,
form
this
for-
is the guidance that they are given as far as,
Yeah, I'm okay, effective immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, the phone will be ringing off the hook. All right, item number 13, presentation of Adams Art Grant. Kevin, you want to set this up? Andrew?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Eric Wing from a consultancy called Metro Create. He's coming up to the Diaz now, and he's going to present the report from the Adams Art Grant for the downtown marketing. I want to tell you a little bit about Eric. He's a 11-year resident of Maynard, and he's worked with nonprofits and the arts community throughout Massachusetts for many years, advising them on how to better market their products. And this grant was brought to us through the efforts of Eric Smith and others prior to my coming here. But I had the pleasure of putting it together over the past few months with Eric doing all the work. So he was selected from an RFP process. There were several other companies that proposed, and very happy with the results of having selected this gentleman. It's all yours, Eric.
Thank you. Well, good evening. So it's time to switch your brain a little bit and think about some creative ideas, basically, is what I'm going to present tonight. So I'm wondering how... Okay, good. So basically, like what Andrew was talking about, we had an objective of looking at a way to bring more awareness to the arts in Maynard. And some of the programming that I'm suggesting this evening to start with, looking at ways to enhance community identity as an art destination, generating downtown activity, promote resident involvement, provide regional draw, and highlight local artists. Specifically the regional draw. There's a lot of tie-in that we'll be discussing with that. So the approach, so you're probably already aware of the art space running their monthly program, Second Saturdays. So I've worked closely with Giroux at the art space for many years, and when I was approached with this opportunity, I thought that the existing program being in place would be a great catalyst for an expansion of other programs. So the plan grew to create an annual event card system, which I'm going to explain, to promote monthly events. So if you look at all of the potential events that could happen over the course of a year, and you break it down by month, you can then promote those monthly. And then depending on how many events you have on this card, will dictate how involved the process is. And then of course, oversight of professional marketing of the events. So when you think about marketing in general, you have to think about branding. It's nice to have a bunch of ideas or programs, but how are you going to encapsulate that in a way where if you say one word or you have one symbol, evokes your images of what your goal is. It communicates on your behalf. Some ideas came to mind. One of them that stuck was the concept of I Heart Maynard. By highlighting the word art, you're tying in a lot of positive imagery, and then of course the prime objective here, which is the art recognition of the town. And another one, the Maynard option, which could be a slogan. When you think of all of the events that we'll be proposing to the town, and surrounding towns, we want Maynard to be an option for their entertainment. So the website would essentially be the nucleus of the program. All of the programs, all of the events would lead back to the website for further explanation, the ability to share. I'm going to talk about it more in a minute. And then each event provides promotional material opportunities. So I touched on it on the previous slide. So if you have 5 events taking place on any given day, the promotion opportunities are pretty close to limitless. In fact, I'm going to talk about the communication channels after this slide. So for example, here's a very rough outline of what an event card could look like. Break it down by month. Now, there's a couple of ways of approaching it. Originally, and still primarily, I'm thinking that it would be good to consolidate events onto a single day. So for instance, Saturdays, right? So you have the second Saturdays happening at the art space. You can build out programs around that and incentives with downtown merchants, things that are going on within the restaurants and things along those lines. The card itself could actually be an opportunity for further exposure for the merchants. So for instance, brought to you by Maynard Outdoor Stores. So it could be October is brought to you by. So you can build those relationships and allow for additional exposure for those merchants, but also if, touching a little bit on covering costs. And then family friendly and free events, of course, will be sprinkled in. We have to walk that line of wanting to create a surge for local merchants. So, of course, working with them for different promotions and things along those lines, but also leveraging things like music in the park, things that already exist. So some other event card possibilities that I was brainstorming are here. This list could have gone on for quite a while. I most specifically want to talk about the bolded ones. So when we think about ways of driving traffic into merchants, we have in town, prior to my moving here, the reputation of Maynard was that there were a lot of fantastic restaurants. And indeed, while now living here and understanding how deep the restaurant community is, and the fact that there's a lot of ethnicity in the town as well. So why not create a passport that highlights the different regions of the earth that are represented here in Maynard, and then wrap a program around that which drives people into the restaurants to get their passports stamped. So that would, of course, be a coordination with the restaurants, and maybe they're running a particular promotion that day or what have you, but it creates a great opportunity for exposure, traffic, revenue, and just fun. I think it would be fun to fill out a passport. The other one that I'm quite fond of is Student Film Festival at Fine Arts Theater. I've had I've had one great conversation with Jay, and he's on board with the idea, if it were to come to him. And the idea would be, in fact, I touched on it a little bit more in an additional slide, but I have a 13-year-old son, and a lot of these things would he be interested in? I don't know, probably not. But does he like technology, and does he like film? Does he like that type of entertainment? Absolutely. This is an idea that would draw out the older children in the community to create in surrounding communities, bring them to Maynard and wrap programs around that as well, where you see your child's film on the big screen, and then what are you going to do after? Let's get you downtown. And then lastly on here that I would like to touch on would be the art and public art passport. So very similar to the restaurant, have one for all of the different art related establishments around town, both merchant and public, and have a tie-in with a promotion as well for that. So communication channels, it's nice to have all of these things, but how are you going to let people know about them? Some of the ideas, so Beacon Villager, fittingly is creating a new section just for local arts. And some preliminary conversations happened with Holly, and she's interested in promoting this if it were to come to her, basically taking the event card, giving that to her to print. Again, I Heart Maynard or another website would be the nucleus of it. Social media outlets, I think everyone is well aware of how great of a communication channel social media can be. And then in-school promotions, local advertising, residents themselves, business and community groups. Basically word of mouth. So the website itself would be, like I said, where we would direct everybody to learn more. But not just have it be a static landing page, but why not have more of a community aspect? Maynard has lots of websites. So there exists an opportunity. In fact, I met, over the course of my researching all of these concepts, I've met with upwards of 20 people within town that run different organizations and merchants, and a common theme was there are all these wonderful groups in town, but there's no single vessel to feed what's going on to, and have there be a consolidated resource for people to know about everything that's going on. So why not leverage some of what could potentially be created here as a vessel for more of a community encompassing idea. And then of course, social sharing as well. So you could have neat things like, sharing the event itself, saying, hey, I'm coming to this. And if we're, if it's clever enough, presented in a clever enough way, could touch on viralness. And then new programs like Did You Know campaign, touch on that in the next slide. And then I already mentioned community portal. It's more than just information, it's community engagement. So, like I said, informing residents, utilize program infrastructure as a way to communicate town groups, councils, and committees. I've had a lot of success with these types of programs in the past. As a way to communicate, did you know that Maynard has a radio TV station, a food co-op, a family association, performing arts theater, things along those lines. I know Dave Shepard is constantly looking for additional support and awareness. And then special programs. So I touched on this briefly already, but it's almost endless with the different things that you can run. Whether it's a coupon from a restaurant, it's a social media contest with different tags, check-in points, things along those lines. And then the passports themselves. There could be prizes worked out with the restaurants and the art. Okay, moving right along. Keep them coming back. So again, it's nice to have all of these things, but if folks come once and don't come back, it's not very sticky. So really my job was to come up with programs that would make people want to come back. So for instance, I go back to the Regional Student Film Festival. Kids bring families to Maynard, involve local and surrounding school districts, cross-promote with local arts and food passport. And then there's even a potential of celebrity judges that I uncovered, which is, I thought that was interesting. Further tie-in and focus. So with meeting with Andrew, I learned about this time capsule, which there's so much that could be done with this. In fact, Maynard 2020 itself could be a branding slogan. Guess what's in the capsule program involving the schools. Additional tie-ins would be the Mass Cultural District. So currently Maynard is, as you know, going through the application process. Part of the application process is a marketing plan or a presentation of an idea of what marketing would look like. So something like this could really plug into that nicely, or an amended version of it. The Economic Development Committee, a lot of crossover potential. And then local business groups. A lot of them I've mentioned, and I don't need to go through the list. I know you guys are aware of who they are. Okay, and then suggested next steps. So I've given a lot of suggestions in this proposal. Basically, the final suggestions would be getting it off the ground, create a program framework, branding, website, merchant buy-in, establish ongoing systems and focus, announcing events, adding merchant programs, maintenance, things along those lines, engaging the business community, and then establishing what those monthly marketing plans would look like. So that would be the heavy lifting, getting all of this sort of in a place of execution. So, and that's what I've got. It's a lot of information.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, anything to add to this?
Eric touched on a little bit of crossover with the Economic Development Committee, and that happened to get mentioned this morning. The Economic Development Committee met on a regularly scheduled meeting, and one of the things we discussed are 3 grants that the town's working on right now and how they overlap with the initial elements of economic development we're working on. I'm happy to say that Eric's presentation touched on 4 of the 6 elements, equal to the other 2 combined. There is significant overlap with many of the tenets of what we're trying to accomplish in the community and what Eric has presented.
And your thoughts on, Andrew, your thoughts on suggested next steps? I mean, if we were to move forward with this, who's the leader?
I think the town needs to take the lead on this, but in the long term, I think this can also be a self-sustaining sort of independent enterprise, using things like Aspet Valley Chamber and the Maynard Business Alliance as sort of engines behind it. If we can build the framework, build the structure, perhaps the website idea that Eric mentioned has local advertising on it that covers the costs of the program. It would require regular, he mentions monthly updating, for instance. If we were to take the plan as presented as a concept and say, let's do that, you know, somebody in perpetuity would have to manage that monthly. So it's not something that we can just sort of build and toss out there. But I do think it could be done where it would sustain itself economically if the town wants to give it that sort of Kickstarter funding, to coin a phrase.
So were you volunteering to lead?
I would recommend, if the town is interested in pursuing this further, that it set aside some money and hire a company to implement a plan along the lines of this concept. You know, it doesn't need to be precisely what Eric presented, but along those lines of making Maynard, putting Maynard on the map, essentially, from a business standpoint, giving people a reason to come here. If we go out and hire a company by an RFP process, I'm sure we could do it for, you know, a reasonable investment of the community's resources.
Okay. Questions from the board?
A comment more so than a question. This sort of falls in, you may recall, in last Thursday night when we met with our goals meeting, when I spoke about marketing our town and taking advantage of those opportunities. I think this really fits in with that very well. You know, when you think about it, the opportunities are really endless as far as what we could do. I just had the pleasure of spending a couple of days down in Hyannis, and they have this whole big thing with their arts that, and for whatever reason, being, you know, associated with what's going on in our town, I was taking note of how they advertised it and how they, you know, they promoted the things that were going on. And there are opportunities, and I think it would be a wise thing for us to explore and to actually start pushing, because you know, our arts community is one of the you know, the main. I think that's what's going to drive us as we move forward. So,
Okay.
those are my comments.
Jason?
Eric, thank you for the presentation. I think, you know, a lot of this does dovetail very nicely into some of the community goals for the year. I guess I have some concern as to, I think kind of what Bill, what you started to go into, sort of who specifically is championing this to help get it off the ground? Because there's a lot of legwork involved in a process like this. There's a lot of team building. And is that going to be the Economic Development Committee, or is that going to be a subset? Is that going to be a, this board? Is that going to be a subset of this board and the Economic Development? I think there's a lot of pieces that have to be put in place. Like even before we look at taking, the grant money and getting somebody on board and getting a website going.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing I was thinking of the effort to get a cultural district defined probably happens before that district gets marketed. So.
Well, I think we can market Maynard.
Yes, we can market.
Maynard's a terrific place to come, and a lot of the events, Eric, that you had mentioned are, a lot of them aren't new. They've been done in the past, or they're being done currently by different factions in the downtown. Factions isn't probably the right word, but they're being done now. I think this is how we tie them all together, and how we leverage those. Just like I said, the question is, how do we go about that? If it's, if you tell me that Maynard Business Alliance is gonna, we're gonna meet with them and they're gonna come in and they're gonna be the reach out to all the business owners to get people on board, then great, that's terrific. If it's got to go a different way, I'm just curious as to how it's gonna move forward. And I don't know that we're there yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Eric, in your experience with a town, of size similar to Maynard, who's doing this sort of thing well?
Well, that's a good question. I think Maynard's it's a unique situation with the amount of arts in the local downtown merchant area. I see, if I think about a lot of the seaside towns going up, I'm from Maine originally, so if I, or if you go down into the Cape area, no towns specifically come to mind, but I know just through passing that they're generally, because of the tourist influx, there seems to be a greater focus. But honestly, I can't think of a model town that is doing something on this particular scale. It's quite comprehensive. I think there are towns that are touching on elements of this, but just the uniqueness of the amount of committees and councils in Maynard, not to mention the art space and all of the independent merchants, it's a real magical mix of opportunity here that I honestly can't think of a model town.
Okay, fair enough. I gotta admit, I do like the student film festival idea, but we gotta get that theater open.
Yeah, they're close. They're close.
I hear that a lot. That's good. So Andrew, what's the next steps on Eric's contract? Do we need to accept his presentation and he's done? Is this a draft? What's going on with that?
This is his report to us. His obligations with the grant are essentially over. He has agreed to make a comparable presentation, perhaps a little more detail, to the Economic Development Committee in September. Mm-hmm. But our grant obligations with Eric are currently fulfilled, or vice versa. Our next steps, I think, are to, meaning this board and folks like the members of the Economic Development Committee, perhaps making a recommendation that we pursue a marketing program of this type, perhaps allocating funds from downtown. I forget the name of the program we have, but there's money for downtown reinvestment.
Whatever, I forget the name of it too. Downtown enhancement.
And, or CPA funds. There's a number of ways we can look at this and say, is this an appropriate use of town resources? And then very seriously engaging. Jason brought up the sort of the obvious point, who's going to do it? Many communities have economic development officials, full-time employees, that, you know, their role is to foster these types of relationships across their communities. We don't have that luxury given the size we have, but we do have a tremendous group of people who are ready, willing, and able to stand up and do things. So, you know, we would have to have some professional management. I would suggest that that be hired on a consultant basis, not on a full-time basis, and that they corral that energy that this community has and build it. Once it's built, the maintenance costs, this is what I was saying earlier, should be able to sustain themselves through modest advertising fees, that sort of thing.
So who's going to put together the initial ideas about financial feasibility and financial sustainability? Where's that analysis going to come from? Because the last thing I want to do is say, oh, we should go spend 20 grand this year, and
Put
you
an
know,
RFP
then we
out
don't
and
have
find out
20
it's
grand to
50.
spend next year.
Fair enough. I think that would have to come to this board from the town administration, and we'll get to that in the immediate future. Put together what we think is a fair and reasonable cost, and see if you guys like what we present. If you prefer, if you want us to move forward or take it in a different direction.
Okay. So question to the board members, do we want Andrew and company to, you know, work on the plan a little more and, you know, figure out the nitty-gritty of money and personnel?
Yeah, with some suggestions as to how we can move forward. I certainly don't want it to fall off the radar screen, though, and that's, you know, sometimes easy to do when you've got a program that's beginning to swim or just jumping in the water.
Very good. Jason, you okay with that?
I'll make sure we put floaties in the budget.
Yeah.
That's a
Just
lot.
spent some time on the Cape, so he's got a water
I'm
thing
in the
going.
water.
All right. All right, well, thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have people waving at us. You have money and personnel to implement this?
No, but I would like to say that I think it's, that Eric, it seems that Eric has this toolkit to bridge the divide that I see. I and people, some friends of my friends know a lot in the community, and I've talked with a lot of groups, and they're all very excited. They need to see how to channel their energy. I know that you all have been very supportive. I know that people at the state are supportive, state level are supportive, but we need someone to bridge something. And does a town planner do this? We have a town planner now.
We do. I don't know, that's something Andrew will research and determine for us.
Yeah, the town planner and I are getting along really well. I was hesitant to volunteer him.
Well, I mean,
Well, the idea was from the prior town planner, so.
but the other
only
thing is
fitting.
for this cultural district designation, I don't know, in February, I spoke with the board, but there is required by the state to be a partnership. And I have gone around, and I had a meeting that I ran in May, and by the leadership, two people from the leadership team of each of the places I spoke with, and they came, there were about 30 people there in town hall. I even got applause. But there's a Revitalized Maynard Collaborative, the Maynard Business Alliance. I know Joe, Cloud Tower Place wants to be in on it, Assabet Valley wants to be in on it, the Fine Arts Theater wants to be in on it. And we have information for the application from each of those partners, those people that would like to be partners. And I'm sure as soon as we have the public hearing, which is another thing, since we have that, we have someone from the state out to talk, we'll get more partners. Once they understand and they hear from somebody with the credibility of the state behind them. So I'm not saying that they would be the leaders, but I'm saying you have those kind of people that will be coming into this partnership and at the same table.
All right, well, thank you. All very promising. Thank you again, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm guessing, Andrew, you're up again.
Yeah, it's my
Collective
turn.
bargaining agreements.
Well, I'm happy to report, just a few weeks behind our intended schedule, we can have a signing ceremony for 2 more of our unions. I will not promise.
We have one that's outstanding.
We still have one outstanding, and it's going to be a while longer. We do not even have another meeting scheduled at this point, but we do expect to meet with them next week. Some of that's summer vacations, and some of that is other process issues. But I present to you 2 documents for signature. There's a red tab where you can open up to the page that will be where the signatures go. There are 2 separate documents, one for each of the 2 unions. They're represented by the same business agent, so the cover pages look similar. So please don't shuffle the pages together.
All right. Another 3 years of negotiation.
Yes. So a quick summary of our process. We started in late winter and went through regular meetings. This particular union I found very, the business agent and each of the union representatives very good to work with. Everybody was very sensible about what they were trying to accomplish and reasonable about the realities of the town's fiscal opportunities. Happily, I want to report that in each of these contracts, we have removed from the future employment the sick leave buyback provisions. We have for future hires.
Yeah, completely.
They're completely out. And the current ones, I believe, are 20% ratio. They're lower than some of our contracts. The healthcare opt-out language has been standardized, which was very important. Actually, these 2 unions had the model language that we worked off of that we now have in all the contracts. The department head union, which is now called the professional staff union because it better reflects the nature of its members, had a performance-based pay incentive that was removed from the contract. That would have increased the value of annual salaries by up to 5%, roughly $25,000 from that one portion of the contract. And so that was removed completely from that contract. In addition to that, the DPW contract also had the educational incentive removed for future hires. And there's a very small percentage, less than 10% of the employees in that group that currently get that. So that's another one where there's this large potential future costs now that's been removed. We also rewrote all the job descriptions. Actually, Chris rewrote all the job descriptions for the DPW. I had nothing to do with it. But in the previous contract, typical job description was about a paragraph long. And now it's a full page or more with supervisory roles and responsibilities and proper qualifications and a more detailed structure of what the job description is than the previous contract offered. That was a big one because it's a type of work where there's additional compensation when you're working outside of your grade. And so knowing the specific responsibilities for each job help us manage a little bit better and keep our costs under control in those areas where there's people working out of grade regularly. Also, happily, we got rid of the step table in the department heads union. They're all professional staff, and they all receive a professional salary. But they do not get an automatic step every year, as some unions get. They'll only be entitled to COLAs moving forward. In the Public Works union, they still have a step table, but it has fewer steps, which is one of the goals we went into the negotiations with. You may recall, we felt strongly that steps are an indication of on-the-job learning, and after several years, you've become expert at your job, and then cost of living is a reasonable benefit, but continuing to give people step raises when there's no enhancement to their job function is just an extra cost to the community. So that's been restricted in the DPW contract. We did all those with modest and what we believe to be quite affordable increases. Both unions will be receiving 1.5% COLAs for fiscal 15. The professional union will receive a larger COLA in the second year. The DPW's is 2%, and the department heads is 2.5% in the second year.
I see 3 here.
I mentioned that we eliminated that, yeah. They eliminated the performance base from the professional staff and the education from the DPW.
I have department heads at 3%.
3%.
Second year.
I'm sorry, yes, it's 1.5 this year, 3% next year.
Okay.
And the DPW is 1.5 and 2.
All right. Comments, questions from the board?
No, other than thank you for the diligence and hard work that the staff put into this. And from the way it sounds, thanks are owed to the bargaining side as well. So,
It
we understood our needs.
Yeah, going into these things, especially being new in the community, it's important to develop a strong working relationship with the unions and building trust across both sides of the table. And I think we were able to do that with each of the 3 contracts that have already been settled. And, that will pay dividends moving forward as well.
Can you explain the side agreement on the department head contract?
It used to be embedded in the contract, and it only applies to that particular person in that particular position. And so we didn't want it in the contract, and then if there was job turnover, it became sort of assigned to the new employee in that position. So we removed it as a side agreement and made it quite clear that it only applies until that person leaves their role.
But it's, just to elaborate further on that, when the department head union was formed, the building commissioner was not a member of that bargaining unit, and he was employed by an interim town administrator, Dave Owens, as a kind of a contract employee at 32 hours with an agreement that he would not work Fridays. As Andrew stated, we again that was a decision solely for that individual, and part of the agreement to move him into the union was that he would maintain that same structure. So for all these renewals, it's been captured within the existing contract, and it doesn't allude to the individual, it alludes to the actual job position. And moving forward, if for some reason there becomes a vacancy in the position of building commissioner, we want the flexibility to be able to adjust it accordingly to the town's needs. So that's all that is. There's nothing in there that he currently already isn't entitled to. It's just, again, solely for the individual.
Very good. Any other comments, questions from the board? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the town of Maynard and the Massachusetts Laborers District Council in behalf of Public Employees Local Union 1156 of the Laborers International Union of North America from July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2016. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 3-0. I make a motion to approve the agreement between the town of Maynard and the Massachusetts Laborers District Council in behalf of the Public Employees Local Union 272 Maynard Professional Personnel of the Laborers International Union of North America for a term from July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2016. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 3-0. All right, just give me 1 second to sign these and not mix them up. That'll be good.
Sorry I took the top line on those, Bill.
Wonder how they knew it only have 3 lines. That's one. Very good. Thank you. All right, that's item 14. So item 15, Community Preservation Committee proposal ideas. And we had talked some generic concepts last meeting, and I just wanted to bring this up as a topic to see if we want to have the town administrator move forward on a couple of his ideas. One was the seeking the historic display in the town hall, which I think is short money. And the other is, if it's necessary, additional funding for rail trail easements, is that right? Or
Rail trail
somethings?
easements as well as rail trail project, I would say, leave it at this point. We're still doing the economics of it, but part of it is making sure there's enough funding available for the rail trail easements, as well as the engineering design costs of the GPI firm and the cost sharing with the town of Acton.
And, you know, I probably would rather we have some more creative ideas at the moment, but
Well,
if we're gonna spend money on the rail trail, I'd rather the state pay a third of it.
One thought
Right.
also is, and I don't know how far along and whether or not it's even an allowable use of CPA, but for any ideas relative to the use of the clubhouse at the golf course for a senior center, would CPA funds be eligible to do that based on the recreation aspect of senior use?
No.
I think it's a possibility, but it's probably a gray area.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's great. We've reviewed somewhat of the concept of that with town council, and there's, as Andrew says, a gray area with the recreation aspect of it, and outdoor recreation versus indoors and some other stuff, but.
I don't wanna lose sight of, you know, the request for permission to move forward on the two, but the issue of the golf course, hadn't occurred to me, but could we solicit funding for the golf course improvements? And the golf course maintenance equipment? Once again, thinking if it has to be paid for, better the state pays a third.
Yeah.
I don't know, is it eligible?
Yeah. You mean, you're talking about at the course?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
This is about CPA.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be eligible. As the funds that actually purchased it.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few improvements that the golf course is looking to do, and some of them might fit more cleanly into the open space and recreation definition than others.
Mhm.
So for instance, there's quite a bit of tree pruning and even tree removal, which would enhance the golf course. Some of them are dead or dying, some of them are obstructed, but it would be easier to argue for that type of work than some of the other items that are purely, specifically golf related.
Jason, any thoughts on the rail trail and the historic display first, and then anything else?
No, I'm okay with those two. The only other thing I could think of that might be short money is, I seem to remember a short time ago, I believe the Girl Scouts put in some butterfly gardens at the new playground, or playgrounds. I'll defer to anybody with kids and Girl Scouts, but
I think Ken's wife's troop is the one that led that charge. So
I know there was at some point after that a discussion of benches at those gardens.
The butterfly garden at Coolidge?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah. The bench has already been procured
Oh, all right.
and should be received this week. There's just a final follow-up with making sure with the Girl Scout troop as far as placement of it. But that was already, has already been procured within the existing funds there. So the bench is getting added. It's already in the
Okay.
works.
Yeah, I knew that had been
it was
floating
such a good
around out
idea,
there.
people were ahead.
Yeah, no, we're just
slow.
waiting on it. It's been ordered.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, the other thought, as you bring up the golf course, maybe, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Selectmen-sponsored thing either, but I'd like to look, we talk about the golf course piece on maybe some other year-round activity out there with the, particularly with the walkways and the area, the need to improve some of the walkability in the walkways, which is already on that capital list, but may have more of a better use of CPA money as well. Project that's, again, it's already listed on there for improvements. That and I think what the tree clearing.
Trees, walkways, things that could be used year-round or
Yeah.
enhance the property year-round might make a better case for CPA fund.
What about the committee's recommendations regarding compatible uses? You know, they were talking about establishing community gardens and stuff. That would take money. They were talking about other stuff along the first hole, I think.
Yeah, they were.
The first hole issues require other movement within the course, because they have to
So, yeah.
redirect the.
Yeah, we're probably not advanced enough. We had been looking for some financial information about that. I guess we're probably not there yet.
Right.
Is there any, hearing this presentation by Eric Wing tonight, is there any available CPA funds that we could potentially tap into? Is there any avenue to get help along those lines? Is there any of the three categories that fit? Whether we consider the soon-to-be economic or cultural district, rather, historic.
I think we could consider it both historic and recreation. And the historic may need a little more proving, but there's no doubt that we're talking about outdoor recreational spaces, the walkability aspects of downtown.
Yeah.
All these things are part of that sort of image that we're trying to create or enhance or take advantage of. So I think
So
there's a strong argument there.
Yeah, any opportunities for those funds to be used to sort of build a base on what we were just talking about would be beneficial.
Especially if it's that Kickstarter money, if we're only going to ask for it once, knowing that we have the sustainability plan in place once it is going. One-time expenditures of money are usually less painful than the recurring ones.
Recurring ones are harder, but.
Well, those are, I talked about sidewalks the last time to recreational spaces. But even improvement of sidewalks along Summer Street down to the downtown area, if we're going to consider that to be our cultural district, from the hub of the art space down to the rest of the district, could be potential in that category. But that's different from what I'm talking about trying to fund.
Right.
Just some ideas.
So my suggestion is the board gives consensus for the town administrator and ATA to prepare a preliminary submittal for the rail trail and for the historic display, and then we have a further discussion next meeting about whether they think there's anything more viable and effective we could do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because
I'll make
To
that, I'll
say
make
it
a
to
motion,
to
so
say it-
moved.
So, all right, well, I was gonna go consensus, but we can do that motion, that's fine. I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? 3-0. Go to it, guys, and come back with another great idea next time.
We'll do.
All right, item 16, economic development updates. I'm not sure, you used up all your good stuff last time. What do you got this time?
Not a whole lot. I wish I had more good things to share. We're still putting our feelers out on the Walgreens property downtown. Nothing definitive at this point, other than the leasing agency has actually added a more aggressive advertising piece to the building itself from CB Richard Ellis, CBRE, that actually highlights that there's leasing space available.
Do they say for how long?
No. Yeah, it basically references a phone number to contact for additional information. As I think I mentioned before, they had done a 2-page marketing lease brochure the day they actually vacated the building. C.B. Richard Ellis pushed that out to the retail market. But, there's still questions whether, they're actually willing to sell it as well, and where that lies. So we're still waiting on some callbacks from individuals that are involved with that. and
Can
trying to
you
get some
confirm who,
straight answers.
I did a little bit of research, but I think I might have been wrong on my research. Who owns that building?
Yeah, Walgreens itself, but it's within, I think it's within the real estate arm of
Yeah,
of
because
Walgreens.
I sensed it was somebody else, because when I looked it up, it's under a different name
Yeah.
entirely.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but
they
it
just
is-
put
it
it, they
is
just put it
Walgreens.
in under a different LLC.
Yeah, it's something that, yeah.
It's a division of Walgreens.
The mailbox is probably the same state.
It's in Illinois.
Okay.
I believe Deerfield,
Yeah.
which is, Illinois is where the corporate is for
Okay.
Deerfield,
Walgreens.
Illinois, yeah, I know that place.
Yeah.
Big ass.
And then that also ties into with the, sort of with the church. I mean, two kind of unique opportunities that are facing the town in critical locations. The church piece on.
There's a historic property we
on
could
the
get with CP
triangle.
fund.
That I do have a contact with as far as who's selling it. I just don't know what the asking price is yet, but they are looking to actually sell that property. And I think on the Walgreens side, I think there may be with a broker that's looking to that's listing both properties as sale, as well as going down the road of leasing the Walgreens place. So I think they're going down two paths at this point. Again, I'm just waiting for additional information, what they want to share, more or less.
I figured, is the church property zoned for residential? Could they put in a pair of
No.
condos or something?
No, I don't think so.
Business overlay district,
It's zoned
It would
sphere.
fit.
It could be mixed use.
It could be
under
mixed
DOT.
use, similar to the Main Street property, I guess.
Yeah, I just trying to adapt the building because it doesn't
The
have a whole
MBOD.
lot of adaptation
Yeah.
possibilities.
Put a bid in on?
Yeah.
A couple condos, you might break even doing it. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's unique too, because one, it's on our main street, but it's also at a pivot triangle place where it's a gateway opportunity too. It's kind of that's why I said it's two unique opportunities there.
I would also mention that if you ever wanted Main Street to go back to two-way traffic, you would need a piece of it. Not that you necessarily do, but if you did, you're gonna need a piece of it.
Right. The Waltham Street, 4951 Waltham Street project has completed the demo aspect in the sense that the building is down. They're still doing debris cleanup. But they have submitted a plan to the planning board for the Oriental Delight parcel, not the parking lot across the street. We haven't seen anything come in for that yet. But the planning board has received a plan for a triplex and a duplex, so 5 units total on that side of the property adjacent Hayes Street. And the other thing I have, just the Economic Development Committee update. They held their second meeting this morning, today, moving forward with prioritizing plans, off to a great start. We got some really good momentum. It's a great group, good participation, and at least for the interim to maintain that momentum, they're planning on meeting every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Initially until they can prioritize plans and the charge and really formalize, and then they'll set a more reasonable meeting schedule. But at this point, they're going to be meeting at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays in this room. Also, just to add the side, Rep. Hogan has been involved has participated in both of the kickoff meeting and today's meeting, and had announced a thing called Edge Communities Commission, and she's going to provide some additional information, but she's seeking to get representation from Maynard on that commission. And I think the whole EDGE concept is really more of the, I think, the larger sort of known city gateways in the state, but looking at getting the EDGE Communities Commission to focus on some of the smaller communities in Massachusetts and that aren't targeted or tagged as gateway communities. That's really the initiative. You have anything more on the EDGE initiative?
No, Representative Hogan said she's going to pass forward information shortly, and she very much wants a Maynard representative on the commission. It'll be a regional group.
Mm-hmm.
And she made it clear there's going to be a lot of potential benefits for smaller towns that the gateway cities traditionally have been getting.
Right.
Yeah, she mentioned it to me at one point, and, you know, we have all the same issues as them. I mean, we're old mill
Absolutely, yeah,
communities
yeah.
and stuff, and it's just we're smaller, so.
Right. That's why, you know, just having Representative Hogan on that group is a huge asset for the town, and to bounce off ideas that, you know, get our wheels spinning and we can look at, but also, you know, keeping the smaller communities that she represents, you know, while she's at the State House has been invaluable. Nothing more, really nothing more on that front.
Is there any follow-up from the conversation we had with the Capital Group back on, I don't know, when was that,
Yeah.
August 6th or something? And, you know, I'd sent notes to the other members, but, you know, they had talked about their issues with supermarket size and their desire for liquor licenses and something else. I don't know if there's any follow-up discussions they've had.
Yeah, the only other thing they had discussed was potentially was for the medical piece, for the medical clinic, you know, the definition of what and whether or not they'd be able to fit in there because of it's not an allowed use on the industrial. That piece of it has been put on the back burner. They're not
The medical piece.
Yeah, the medical piece. They're not looking at least pushing forward under that, and there's still question about where it fits in the definition. But at this time, the only discussion that's still out there is the additional request for the additional 3,000 some, you know, it's 3,900 for the actual grocery store piece. And they did appear at the planning board at their last meeting, whatever that Tuesday was, last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 12th. Jason and I actually were both in attendance for that discussion, and the planning board heard for the first time, a preliminary reason as to why they're requesting it and moving forward. There's a follow-up meeting with the town planner and a special counsel, I believe next Tuesday evening that's scheduled with 129 Parker. I think if Andrew's around, he may be able to attend as well, because I won't be there. But I already know what the conversation, the discussion is around, but they're trying to firm up the exact on the, particularly for moving forward with the town meeting stuff. But it's all been cleared up as far as the requirements of the town, of the actual hosting of a hearing and the timelines. So that'll work out for town meeting to move forward.
Does it look like they've acknowledged and acted on the suggestions that if they keep talking about 300 housing units, it could
No.
be a little difficult to get a 2/3 vote at town meeting?
Yeah,
It's not directly related,
yeah.
but reality is
I want to
reality.
hope they heard that message. I haven't heard it. Essentially, that was you were there. That was the takeaway. That you know, certainly.
All they said was they were gonna, you know,
Yeah, we
take it
have-
into consideration, but I don't really understand if they understand town meeting timeline and what happens when it gets shot down at town meeting, because, you know, then it can't come back. and whether they understand the full
Yeah,
cost-benefit analysis of their actions.
right,
Maybe on Tuesday they'll be educated a little further.
yeah. I don't know.
One
have
would-
yet to come
one would
back on the
think
housing
that,
piece.
You know, something like this 3,000 square feet thing that I haven't gotten all the details on, but I understand what their rationale is. But one would think, hey, here's a situation, they need something from Maynard. They need us, in order to move forward with their progress, they need something from us. That, to me, in negotiations is leverage. So therefore, we should be able to say to them, you need something from us, well, we'll be happy to give you something if you finally come back with the realization that you're not going to be seeking 300 housing units, that you're not going to be seeking 250 housing units, that you're going to be seeking something that we can discuss. If we can put that on the table, then maybe we can move forward with your 3,000 square feet request. But without that, why give up that leverage? Why would we go forward with a town meeting vote that could potentially fail, but with a town meeting vote where that's the only issue? Why not build upon this and get this thing going in a way that has a full project rather than just piecemeal it? Because you don't know where we're headed otherwise.
Yeah,
So-
in my mind, it's not an issue of leverage, I mean, because everybody wants a supermarket. It's
Yeah, I agree with
an
that.
issue of reality for them if they don't understand the consequences of their inaction. And, you know, I don't want them to screw it up over something as simple as this, but I don't know how much hand-holding we can do for them.
Yeah.
They're big boys, they're supposed to know how it works, but they haven't demonstrated that.
Agreed.
Okay. Can we roll to the town administrator report?
Sure. Just an update on the downtown parking project, parking deck, former parking deck, if you will. The seal coating of the lot, Summer Street lot, into the lower deck, and what's that, Nyholm, I think what's that?
Yeah. there you go.
Something in
The basin,
Taylor Court.
Basin, yeah.
Nyholm Court.
Nyholm Basin?
Nyholm Court, yeah.
Nyholm Court.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he patrols it?
I don't know. But the seal coating has been completed. You'll see some delineation with public property versus private property down there. And the restriping, for the most part, has all been completed as well, with the exception of probably about 8 or so spaces closest to the wall, of which the contractor has to come back. They've done the hashtags as far as the spacing lineup, but they actually haven't done the striping. They'll be back for that, and we'll also be adding, we'll be doing in-house the striping for the electric vehicle charging stations as well. Those are back on and active, ready to roll. I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to see. That's all been
Saw a car there like 24 hours after you turned them on.
yeah, it's been repainted, and I think there's still a couple of signs that need to go back on, but we've tried to highlight it and make it a visible and seen. So I think it came out nice. I think the end result was particularly of the electric vehicle charging stations is a better product than what it was prior. It was done right with the primer and the canvas they had to work off of. So you'll see those green striping in the electric vehicle stencil will be going down in the next week or so as well.
Question on stencils.
Yes.
What happened to the active wheelchair stencil?
Yeah. That disappointing.
Did they put down the other ones?
Yeah, they did. Despite
That is disappointing.
yeah, I don't have an answer.
All right, we just crushed the hopes of another
Yeah,
young resident.
Greg has been in communication with the individual. I think there's still, man, they might have done them all. He not only told them a half a dozen times on the phone, but also was out that evening where he told them again that wasn't to be done. they were supposed to just do the blue stripes and not the actual stencil. And the contractor, I don't know where, I mean, it wasn't, my understanding from him and the communication, I don't know how they moved forward and did that.
That is disappointing. There's no way we can get reimbursed for some type of money back for the fact that they.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know.
Jason, you probably have
what
no
level
clue
they
what we're
could
talking
do.
about
No,
here.
I know what you're talking about. It
Okay.
took me a second, but
He's well-read.
All right.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know what it'll, I mean, the issue with that paint is bleeding through, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I
brand
don't think
new
there's much you
seal
can-
coat. Yeah.
You gotta wait till it, fades.
just-
It's not as easy as one would think.
It's
Elizabeth
not.
has no clue
If
what
they-
we're talking about.
we just say if they owe us something, have them do it somewhere else. Just have them do the active, have
Well,
them do it
it's-
up here.
it's
at
not
town
a
Seal
hall.
coat this.
Have them do
Yeah.
it up here, or have them do it somewhere else downtown, if they owe us.
Or the
something.
school. Or
They
something,
they owe us, in essence, they did exactly what normal community striping would ask for. So they actually put out more service than what we asked them to do. So, it's not what we asked them to do, but they actually did more than what we did, so it's not a case
I
of-
get
Yeah.
you. It's just,
Yeah.
it was.
No, it is disappointing. We have spoken to the individual that kind of led the charge, and,
Okay.
and she's looking at, but, the next opportunity we have, as we look at the repainting, it's a priority for the new mobility, accessibility sign.
Got it.
But that was a perfect opportunity for it. So, and then, so next week, the final cap on the retaining wall will be put on. That was on a very delayed back order by about 4 weeks. So that cap will be going on, as well as the addition of the new fence for fall protection there. Because of the height, it has to be a minimum 42-inch fall protection. So that'll be going up to match the upper wall fence. It'll all blend in nicely.
So what's going up there? Because that's the one question I keep getting asked is what is going to, currently there's a regular fence, and there's green bushes behind the regular fence. Is there anything else going up there to prevent somebody from climbing that fence and jumping over? No?
No.
Okay.
The fence is actually behind the bushes. So it's,
Yeah, you're right,
It's drilled through the, that's, if you look at the total height, it's, I think it's a 48-inch fence, so 4 foot on top of it.
Okay.
So, yeah. But the grade and installation, it's very solid. But there's nothing to prevent stupidity.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah. What I was referencing, so that piece is done. The actual retaining wall on the lower part, which is the extension of leveling off the Memorial Park, that also will have a fencing once the cap is put on.
Okay.
And then the fencing will go on that. Because of the height of that, we need to have something there as well.
Okay.
That's all scheduled, all been accounted for, but also on that side, directly behind it, will be the installation of the parking lights that came from the top deck that are being reinstalled and put back in. I believe there's 4 along that wall, and there's 1 that remain that'll go over the top of the actual tall wall that kind of will lighten the corner,
Yeah.
if you will, which is
LED
kinda
lighting, I
dark.
assume.
Oh, yeah, no, it's all,
Okay, is it just
So,
like the one that's over the charging station? That looked like it came off from underneath the deck? There's currently an LED, twin head LED light, wall mounted above the charging station. That was on during the day.
that,
Other
the
story.
smaller one?
Yeah.
That came off of the deck underneath.
Yeah,
These are the ones that were on the long pole that were on the top deck.
right. So you're saying the one on the corner is also the long?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah. Yeah, the ones that before we took down the deck, those LEDs that were mounted underneath the deck itself, those have all been taken off and stored. Were able to reuse one of those, but all of the other lights that illuminated the top deck were saved, and those are getting reinstalled next week, and they are LED lights as well. So if you go down there right now in the evening, it is pretty dark, and that'll be a big improvement for safety, especially down there. So we anticipate that getting complete next week in the cap. And we also have been in contact with Priscilla Cotter. She's actually reached out to us and had a discussion with her. I don't know if the board knows Priscilla, but she was
It's here earlier.
Yeah, so she was here and left. She did the paintings on the electric boxes around town and some other stuff, you know, a town-based artist. And she's interested in painting a mural for the deck wall itself. So I think, I don't know, timing-wise, she's offered to really do the mural at no cost other than the supplies. It is a tremendous opportunity for us to engage with somebody like Priscilla and really do something down there that'll be a great community addition.
How much are the supplies?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
We've had some conversations with Jero about it as well, and his recommendation with certain paints because of light, and certain paints that, but I don't know the extent of what those costs will be yet. Have you had any further conversation with him?
We haven't talked about costs. She did say she would do it at no labor charge.
Right,
If
right.
someone paid the material costs. And she has a number of other people happy to help her in the same
Yeah,
circumstances.
fine. I mean, I was going to pay the cost for her to do the other box, but
Right, yeah.
I could just use that money to do this. So I'll talk to her. It's fine.
Okay, yeah.
She's going to put together a proposal, like with the concept, because obviously it would be something we'd want to approve on.
Picture of us, Mount Rushmore?
That was one of the things on the list.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it made it to the final round.
Yeah.
We did a preliminary vetting.
You want people,
really high,
not to
okay.
park in the deck.
I did some stick figures.
It's really a good opportunity. We got a nice base white canvas slate to start from, and as I mentioned before, it has some natural delineations if she wanted to do 3 different types of murals or blend it in. There's been a lot of talk. There was a potential concept of only kind of doing half of it and being able to use the upper piece to put up kind of temporary, again, these were just ideas, but banners that hang off the wall that you could advertise, Oktoberfest or some event downtown utilizing that space, but having a mural only doing halfway up and have that as a display area similar to like alumni field fence. But again, these were just kind of all concepts. We don't have anything. She was going to get back to us with something. And
I'm hoping we can move ahead quickly because I got a betting pool going how long that nice white canvas wall is going to stay white.
Graffiti is art too.
It is. It's almost pretty nice, actually. Like Gruber's is good.
Yeah.
Well,
Real
it's
quick.
made it through the summer months, which is the ones you would expect somebody would be out to spray paint.
Right. Especially with no lighting.
That's true. But Carl's out there.
Well, not after 3. So the other side, Mass Municipal Association and Mass Municipal Personnel Association has kind of been working with communities to take part in a benchmark salary survey, and have requested some input. We've provided that and have shared that data. We're one of 75 plus or so communities that have shared that. And it'll be an asset that they're hoping to maintain and move forward for communities to, and particularly like Maynard, it's a tool that we would be able to find useful as we look at contracts and we look at collective bargaining agreements and where do we compare to comparative communities and get some good benchmarking data and getting access to that through the MMPA. So we did provide the data and participated, and they're hoping more will. So we're hoping it'll be something we'll be able to tap into as well.
It's a nice tool. You go in
Yeah.
and search for a certain job position, select the towns you want to be compared with, and just get general information. Pops right up.
Everything, including Harbor Master.
Ben's Fury, that's the job.
Yeah.
Harbor Master is one of my favorites.
The 2015 state budget recently official approved the Aspet River Rail Trail tip funded at $4.5 million. If anybody saw that. The other thing, just kind of on the follow-up on the cemetery piece, looking at a potential rollout date, possibly as September 1st, to roll out the live portal for the public portal piece on the mapping project, and it's really pretty cool. There'll be a direct link within the town's website that'll take you to kind of a back, which the user doesn't really see, of cemeteryfind.com, where you can search by person's name, specific lot number, everything. And it not only you can find the record, but it also does the mapping with the cemetery, with the GIS mapping and everything. So we're looking at, there's a couple of kinks that we're getting cleaned up with, as they start going through and doing some beta testing, that they're not matching up. There was a couple that weren't matching up with where they were on the mapping and stuff. So they're working on that. They had a charge of that, going back and tweaking some of that stuff, and we're hoping that September 1st we'll be able to push that out live to the public. The other thing, the school building administration, I believe, is on the agenda for, actually Ken might be Thursday.
Yeah.
But just as a side, Andrew and I had an opportunity to meet with Superintendent Girardi and Pete DeChico over the, what their plans were and the process that has gone underway. Of course, we discussed the feasibility of leasing potential space in the community, downtown, particularly opportunities that were presented itself at Clock Tower Place, as well as other available space in town that they could utilize, and looking at other options, that may not have been beneficial, but we've at least explored it and threw it out there, including some space here at Town Hall and some other areas that just square footage wise isn't suitable to their needs. Dr. Girardi presented a layout design that I think he's looking to move forward with, to presenting to the school committee, of utilizing some space in the former 5th grade wing of school, which, after looking at it and talking through and understanding where he's coming from, I think it's a very reasonable plan, and it makes a lot of sense in many ways. The cost of it is certainly, future costs is certainly in line with a savings as far as what they would be paying annually on a lease rate, and even the upfitting is fairly minimal impact. It's putting up like a wall and some rearranging a door to make it an emergency exit off of a stairwell, and then putting in some basically access control for fairly minimal. Still looks like it'll be right in line with what they expected to pay for at least 1 year of lease. But after that cost, they really wouldn't have any overhead associated with that. So it looks, again, I think it's a reasonable plan. Andrew and I had some concerns about, just trying to get a better understanding of what the impact would be for future growth, and looking at the data. Dr. Girardi's essentially is convinced of what his capacity is there and the ability to grow within that capacity, and kind of moving up the 5th grade up to the 2nd floor into an 8th grade wing. And he feels that there's certainly, even if it was an interim 3 to 5 year, but even beyond that, could be a potential permanent solution to some degree. So again, I think that's before the school committee, and he'll be looking to present that. I don't know if he's necessarily getting sign off this week.
He needs to have sign off because
he's got to move teachers up to the 5th grade.
Yeah.
So, and he's already said that, you know, he wants the school committee to sign off on it. And I mean, I think at this point, you know, it's a temporary solution, as Kevin said, you know, 3-ish years, maybe 5 on the outside, and gives, you know, sort of breathing space. We certainly don't anticipate needing needing those classrooms within the next, you know, 3 years or so.
Right.
And obviously the whole process with 129 Parker Street, and at this point they're still talking about keeping PK2 and what's going to happen with that, and just a lot of questions that should get resolved, you know, within the next 3 years or so.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's a lot of variables. What I like about the plan is, you know, it's not a case where we make it's a decision that's detrimental in being able to go backwards. You know, 3 years from now, it's a case where we find a suitable home for a school administration and it's not there. It's very minimal impact in the sense that the classroom space is staying as is. It's a matter of taking down the wall that got put up and switching the door around. It's an easy solution for the most part to be able to go back to you know, current operations. So.
While we're on this topic, although not related to how it associates itself with the school, I don't think it was any coincidence that the Historical Commission, through Jack McKean, again posted in our packet their information on the Coolidge School. And I don't think we should let that issue just go past us. I mean, they are clearly interested in our retaining that building for its historical purposes or whatever, and we owe them, if nothing more, an invite to come in and tell us some of their ideas and thoughts about what we should do with that building.
Yeah, I have that on my list
Okay.
to discuss with
Okay.
Bill for future agenda topics.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with that as long as they came in with a financial plan with it.
Yeah.
I'm not too excited about spending gobs of money just because the building's old.
Right.
It'd have to be of value.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll have to do that pretty soon, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last thing I just want to just throw out there, I'm not looking for anything now, but just obviously, since retaining the services of special counsel, we have no budget. So just whether that's future, I've created a budget line item within the legal budget. At this point, that's just going to be getting deficit spent against, but we're going to have to make a decision on, you know, where some of that funding is going to come from, whether it be a reserve fund request or an article or something. But clearly, the services of currently, the town is bearing those costs for special counsel services for Attorney Whitten, and without a budget to support it. So,
Can you help me on the cost for regular counsel?
the cost.
For the regular town council, is it really just a fixed price for everything we ask?
It is.
Or are we asking for additional cost items?
There could be potentially additional costs based on litigation. So there was a few options when we had gone with with council. Essentially everything day to day, and for the most part all of town council services are covered under that monthly flat rate. But additional litigation is outside of the, so when they actually have to do litigation, court appearances, things like that, are outside of that scope. So that's an unknown.
But we haven't had too much of that in this current fiscal.
We haven't. The McDonald property is now litigation. So the amendment, so just to give you an example, this is a perfect example. Drafting of an amendment to the development agreement is included in the services, but the filing and litigation piece, because you failed to follow through on the agreement, that's litigation. So that's going to be costs that are outside of, and that's not something that I really have any other, it's pretty budgeted to the penny. So those types of things have impact that, that are kind of unanticipated. The special counsel piece is, again, so I can keep that separation, we've set up a new line item. That at the moment is just getting deficit spent against the legal budget but we are going to have to address it, whether it be through finance committee reserve request or something. I just want the board to be aware, at some point, going to make a decision on getting funding for that and support for that. And the labor piece is pretty standard as well, but there's things that litigation, as it relates to personnel, which is a different budget, the personnel stuff when it comes to day-to-day labor and collective bargaining, review, personnel issues, those are covered. But then we get into litigation in some old cases like the Rego case, those have direct impacts to the budget that all of a sudden, once we start getting court appearances, that's where we start to run short. So,
Okay.
Good years we're okay. Other years when we end up in litigation, we've been pretty good. But that was the option the town went with, 4 years ago when we switched town council, was to go with the lower monthly rate and take our chances on the litigation because we have fairly minimal. So at this point, I think that still is the better decision. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the special counsel thing, or if we just keep it on your radar. Of course, once there's a project filed, then there's some other mechanisms that we can deal with under whether it be through the 53G and some other mechanisms to capture some costs when there's an actual project. But at this point,
Right.
it's on the town.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me that if something doesn't happen in a somewhat timely manner, we cut them off and walk away. Cut off 129 and walk away, because they just can't keep blundering around and costing us money. But we'll find out. We'll hope for the best. It'll be fine.
All right, that's all I have.
Chairman's report will be brief. Mostly just a question for the board members. Becky put together a list of the liaisons, and she was going to send it to all the committees. And I think it's in our email.
Mm-hmm.
I had kind of expected that we would initiate contact, but I can go either way here. Do you have a preference? Do you want that letter sent out?
I'm fine with the letter going out.
You okay with it, Jason?
Sure.
All righty, that's
It
easy.
gives them a person to contact. It's going out to the chair. We can do with it what we wish.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And that's pretty much all we have for chairman's report, but I'll just segue into old new business with a question for Kevin about the status of the CPC committee with the loss of 2 members.
Yeah.
They still function?
They've been struggling getting quorums, and they still are functioning. As you stated, the 2 members resigned, and they're still
Diane and Mike.
and they're still down that 1 representative from the capital planning as well.
Oh, right.
So Mike, I believe, was a Recreation Commission representative. That's supposed to be on their agenda for replacement. I don't know.
Diane might have been ours.
Was Diana? So at this point, I think we should solicit interest for the 2, Diane as well as the open capital planning, and wait to hear from Rec Commission on a representative that they have to put forward. There was somebody that reached out to the office today that Becky had kind of thrown the concept of their interest in CPC. They were interested in getting involved. I don't know where that stands. Again, that was just today. To see if they were interested. But, yeah, we can certainly put the notice out there and solicit for, but we're gonna have 2 Board of Selectmen appointments to the group. I don't know if they did have quorum, I think
Is
the
it BOS
last.
appointments, really?
Yeah.
I think, well, Mike was recreation. Diane, I
By
think, was
default, will you
ours.
appoint for capital planning? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Selectmen.
for
Yeah.
dormant committees.
Can we be on it? Us individually?
I don't think members of the board are allowed to serve on other committees, I'm not positive.
I don't think we can.
Well, actually, that one,
As a voting member.
we set that up, we had the option of a mandatory requirement that a Board of Selectmen member be on it, but we set it up as a representative from the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Now, maybe things have changed. I'm just thinking for, I mean, they have a tight timeline, so they kind of need somebody to sit. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that we do it forever, I'm just saying to help them make their timeline.
Right. They did pick up one with the appointment of the planning board rep, Linda Conley, who hadn't been there, so that gain, I think they're okay to meet as long as every member that is remaining is present, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we can get 1 or 2 more in there, gives them a little wiggle room.
Right,
All right, that's good. All right. I was just afraid that they would run out of quorum or something.
right. No, it's a legit concern.
All right, Jason, what do you got? Old, new?
Nothing.
Nothing. David?
Mine is very quick. I was remiss in not rewriting the naming policy that we talked about at the last meeting, and then was caught up in personal events of my own life that prevented me from this weekend working on anything. So I will try to get to that before our next meeting, so we have something to talk about again, just sort of revisiting what we talked about on the naming policy.
All right, we don't like Concord, that's the theme.
We don't like Concord's suggestions.
Okay.
Well, at least one member of the public did not.
I swear, the way the newspaper guy wrote it up, jeez, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do
that's
with what
all.
we said, but it was pretty good.
That's all.
Mr. Chair, if, David, you don't.
No, I'm
sorry.
done.
I just want to mention, not necessarily for discussion this evening, but I did send an email out for a very, very, very
Oh.
new draft of a potential stab at a blight bylaw, for better
Yeah, I
terms.
didn't get a chance to read it
In
this
addition to
afternoon.
the nuisance, yeah, I wasn't looking to, this just went out this late afternoon, but just want to, at a future, if that's still, I mean, we're going to, obviously, as we start moving forward, making decisions on some potential warrant articles, but there is a draft that's there that has been tweaked to, I think, better suit. I just got it today myself, so I haven't gone through it, but just if you get a chance, if you can,
That one was for blight, and then we were talking at one point too about noise, and there's also, I mean, I'd really like to try to get a lot of these finished at the same time, so we're not going in, one piecemeal. But, and is that part of the? Should that be part of the bylaw review committee that needs to be created? And
Well, actually, the bylaw review committee cannot be created until after the.
until after the charter's
vote.
okay, fine.
Although theoretically, we're supposed to have a semi-permanent bylaw committee appointed by the moderator.
yeah.
The charter's a little awkward on that.
Yeah, we haven't taken another look at that, David.
But without a committee, we can still create bylaws and see if town meeting will do it. But
The noise and things like that. This was specifically focused on the blight, because I know there was some members of the board that were interested in getting that on there this round to address some obvious concerns, particularly in the downtown.
Yeah, Jason had mentioned a few. At the last
Yeah, I know, I've heard it from Jason. Dawn, when she was on the board, had mentioned it several times, and I had asked council to revisit it, and it's still, again, it's still very draft form, but if you get a chance to review and provide some feedback.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn, a second?
Second.
Adjourn. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.